having enhanced his body, soared into the air. It seemed that his troops were all beyond saving. But retreating to the 16th layer like this was unacceptable. A sense of unwillingness welled up within him. He was so strong, and his troops possessed the power of the 5 elements, yet had ended up in such a situation. If that's the case, then he would rather perish together. Of course, his notion of perishing together did not mean he would accompany them to the grave, but rather that his 5-element skeletons would die alongside Su Bai's army. At least when he returned, he could tell the demon lord that he had killed countless enemies and weakened Su Bai's forces significantly. Though he had lost the 15th layer, he still had some merit. Taking a deep breath, the Beast King shouted, "Rise." Suddenly, the ground trembled. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, 5 pitch-black doors rose from the ground and quickly hovered in the air. The 5-element mysterious domain. Release your final power. In a burst of high energy, the 5 doors emitted corresponding rays of light, growing stronger by the moment. These 5 gates will accompany you to the grave. The power released by each gate was equivalent to 7 or 8 nuclear bombs. Destroying the 15th layer of the Demon Palace multiple times was no problem at all. 5-element ghost gates. Open. But just as he finished speaking, a sharp pain surged from his chest. A long string of numbers floated past above his head. Then came a deafening sound that shattered the sound barrier. Bang! Another loud noise followed. 254818 health points vanished on the spot. Where's my attack? Where's my attack? The Beast King scanned the surroundings. At the height of a building on the ground, there was indeed a glint of reflection. Now he was in a dilemma. Should he continue chanting the spell to complete the final destruction, or pause the spell to eliminate the enemies on the ground? Boom. Another shot fired. For 18897, his health points had already been reduced by 1,000,000. He chose a different path. That was to pause the spell, kill the target, and run away. At least he could survive. He flapped his bone wings and immediately dove towards the 16th floor. Boom. 485,466 nice. Another critical hit. In the sky, the Beast King's bone wings were shattered on the spot, spinning down to the ground. Atisha put away her sniper rifle. Master, the 15th floor is basically under control. Su Bai received the information and clapped both Ying Kong and Zhan Lan on their backs. Don't be dazed. I'm heading to the front line. Are you coming? The 2 girls were eager to go but couldn't ask since Su Bai hadn't spoken up. Upon receiving this response, they immediately agreed. After all, their captain hadn't been found yet. It was distressing. Even though the 15th floor had been secured, they still hadn't seen Captain Zheng Ye's shadow. Don't lose heart. You will be fine. Zheng Ye has survived countless life and death situations. Good people have their own protection. Trust me. On the wolf transport vehicle, the 2 girls comforted each other. Su Bai merely sneered. It's already the 15th floor, and we still haven't seen his trace. He might already be dead, so stop deceiving yourselves. The 2 frowned, wanting to argue but unable to come up with any counter-arguments. They could only remain silent. Just as they arrived at the location, a notification sound was heard. Kill the Beast King to gain mutation enhancement. Note: all melee units gain a 60 agility boost, and wings grow on their backs, allowing them to glide for 1 kilometer in the air. Huh, already dead? That was quick. Su Bai had initially wanted to see the Beast King one last time to see if he looked like his own Beast Man. Unfortunately, he had already passed away. There was nothing of value to see now. However, the skills gained from defeating him were quite good. Another 60 agility attribute boost, and for melee fighters, there was also a gliding function. In this way, for close combat raids, it can quickly bring one in front of the enemy, reducing damage. It's time to unleash some berserk beasts. After all, my berserk beasts are quite powerful and have strong combat capabilities. The only drawback is that they can only engage at close range. In such intense battles, that can be deadly. Therefore, Su Bai prioritizes ranged attacks. However, if they encounter that powerful magic group from the previous level, the berserk beasts won't be of much use. It would be much better if they had a gliding function. The remaining task is to clear the entire area of the 15th level. Su Bai has nothing else to do. So he also brings out the base vehicle of the Yuri faction, builds a few barracks, and starts producing berserk beasts. Sure enough, the berserk beasts have changed now. They have gained mutation enhancements, with muscular backs and huge wings growing out behind them, resembling bats. Great. For the next battle, I'll use the berserk beasts to draw fire. They are much tougher now, with a magic shield shell of 300,000 health, and they can glide. Climbing onto the level's tower, 5 gates in the colors of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth are still floating in the sky. Su Bai, curious, summoned a Night Eagle helicopter and boarded it. The rotor started, and he approached the elemental gates. Su Bai tried to touch one. Acquired. Elemental Ghost Domain. Grade. Divine Artifact. Description. All troops gain a 50 resistance to metal, wood, water, fire, and earth attributes. After use, can summon 100,000 elemental skeletons. Cooldown time, 24 hours. Su Bai gasped. Wow, it really is a divine artifact. That Berserk Beast King didn't want it when he fled. Now that it's in my hands, it will significantly increase combat power. Returning to the ground, Zhanlan and Ing Kong rushed over. Subai, we haven't found any trace of Zhenya. Let's hurry to the 16th level. He might be there. Subai shot a glance at the two women. The troops need to rest. If you want to go to the 16th level, send your own troops. I won't send mine for another 2 days. The two women frowned tightly upon hearing this. Sending their small force to the 16th level would be like giving it away for free. Subai's troops are currently in high spirits and have such strong strength. Plus, some muscle-bound units have been added. They are fully capable of advancing to the 16th level. Please, hurry up and send the troops. The two women looked at Subai with pleading eyes. All right, time reduction is time reduction. When to send troops will depend on your ability. The so-called time reduction can at most cut the time in half, which means 1 day. Since Subai has already retreated, the two women can only nod in agreement. Chapter 281. Elemental Battle. The power of the 5 elements, slicing through steel like mud. After resting for 18 hours, Subai slowly walked out of the wolf cannon vehicle. Although he felt a bit unsatisfied, a man cannot indulge too much, otherwise he would fall into despair. Now, the entire army is assembled and heading to the 16th level. In the distance, 500 enhanced Ongsoren were poised for action. However, Subai did not intend to let this group of Ongsoren take the lead and sacrifice themselves. With a flick of his hand, he used the Undead Rebirth skill. Hundreds of fallen blood skeletons and blood demons were revived on the spot. Go! Charge into battle. With a wave of his hand, he commanded this group of cannon fodder to scout ahead. As the vanguard troops stepped into the 16th level, countless icy flames surged toward them. Hailstones the size of boulders fell from the sky, crashing to the ground and creating a hellish inferno. The two incompatible elements wrapped around each other, while fire and ice split apart, forming ice-fire beings, one side engulfed in flames, the other encased in ice. With flames raging in his left hand and icy armor in his right, the ground transformed into a hell of ice blades. Ice spikes shot up from the ground, bursting into fiery blossoms, wreaking havoc within the ranks of the vanguard. Subai watched this scene, feeling a sense of awe at the duality of ice and fire. Fortunately, he had sent the corpses to scout. Otherwise, sending his own troops in recklessly would have been a waste of valuable resources. However, Subai didn't mind too much. As long as these undead warriors could create a breach for his Ongsoren to enter, it wouldn't be a big deal. Concentrating his forces, the blood skeletons, despite their damaged bodies, engaged in battle with the ice-fire beings. Blood demons soared in the sky but were shot down by the blizzard, their blood raining down and soaking some ice-fire beings, giving them a chilling red hue. In an instant, they turned traitor. Seeing the opportunity, Subai shouted, "Now is the time for the Ongsoren to move. Roar, roar, kill, kill, kill." Amidst the furious shouts, the Ongsoren surged in, stepping into the 16th level of the Demon Palace. As they entered the 16th level, the pain of the ice-fire duality instantly enraged the Ongsoren. The magical shield activated, granting them a temporary invincibility. Taking advantage of this moment, the Ongsoren flooded into the ranks of the ice-fire beings like a tidal wave. Braving the flames and ice, they raised their large axes. Hee, isn't it time to fight? Come to daddy. Boom. Waves of magical flame attacks formed a firewall, with icy shards splattering within. Like a Gatling gun, the agility of the Berserker increased once again. The ice-cold spikes, reminiscent of a Gatling gun, also missed many hits. The Berserker leaped into the air, directly breaking through the towering ice and firewall. With a mighty swing of the giant axe, he came crashing down, instantly slicing the ice and fire creature in half from above. Upon landing, the ground cracked, causing the entire underground palace to sway. Dust and rubble fell from the dome above, showcasing the terrifying power. However, these ice and fire creatures were not to be underestimated. Some managed to evade the Berserker's attack. Flames and ice, like giant claws, ensnared the Berserker within. The magical shield shattered instantly. One side of his body was encased in ice while the other was engulfed in flames. In pain, the Berserker gritted his teeth, drooling, with his eyes rolling back. He was clearly overwhelmed by the damage. This surprised Subai as well. He hadn't expected these ice and fire creatures to be so fierce at close range. Not only were their attack methods diverse, but they could also control their enemies when close. Thankfully, he had only sent out 500 berserkers, not all at once. After all, they were outnumbered. If all were controlled, it would be a futile effort. It seemed better to let them fight among themselves. Since these enemies used elemental attacks, which were manifestations of elements, the support from the Enrager was likely ineffective. It seemed best to use the 5 elements ghost domain. He took out the 5 elements ghost domain. On the 15th floor, 5 pitch-black doors opened once again. From the netherworld, the 5 elemental evil spirits slowly emerged, lined up neatly. With a wave of his hand, Subai commanded, advanced to the 16th floor. The five-element skeletons immediately split into two small teams, entering the 16th floor from both sides. Indeed, upon entering the 16th floor, many ice and fire creatures were still engaged in battle with the berserkers in the formation. Suddenly, the five-element skeletons charged out from both sides, quickly surrounding the ice and fire creatures. The bone blades, infused with the power of the five elements, struck the ice and fire creatures with a 300 damage boost. Boom. Ice and fire, metal, wood, earth, rooted to the ground, all returned to the earth. Every strike was packed with damage, capable of cleaving the ice and fire in two. Although these five-element skeletons relied on melee attacks, their attribute advantage was fully realized here. The assault from both inside and outside the ice and fire formation shattered the array. Many ice and fire creatures were slain. Particularly, the berserker, who had been continuously losing health due to being controlled, regained his senses. With the accumulated rage, the giant axe in his hand spun like a black whirlwind. A fierce wind swept through. Several ice and fire beings were cut in half. Just as these beings were about to retreat, the reinforcements from the nearby troops opened fire simultaneously, targeting the fleeing enemies with a barrage of artillery that turned the ground into mud. Elements shattered, and the void cracked, transforming into steam that rose into the sky. Don't run, my big toy. The chase continued for 30 miles until all the ice and fire beings were eliminated. The battle-hungry beasts only hastily withdrew after their mission was accomplished. Subai nodded in satisfaction. Good, I've established a solid foothold on the 16th floor of the Demon Palace. Next, it's our turn to attack. These elements, neither human nor material, are the core of the natural world. Who is controlling these summoned beings? At the same time, the Demon Lord had a foreboding feeling. The Ice and Fire brothers had struck simultaneously but still failed to halt Subai's advance. Moreover, although it seemed the enemy was regrouping, it was clear to any observant person that they were merely amassing troops. Would the Fire Demon King and the Ancient Ice Beast be able to withstand Subai's next wave of attacks? With this thought, he hesitated about whether to reinforce them. If he sent additional troops now, his forces would be weakened on that battlefield. The 17th floor would be precarious, and he would be in a dangerous position on the 18th floor. After much deliberation, he decided against temporarily reinforcing them. After all, he still had a trump card in the form of the Dead Sea Scroll for those two. As long as they used the scroll and continued to exert their strength, it should be manageable, right? Clearing his throat, the Demon Lord's voice regained its cold and authoritative tone. Everyone, report your total forces to me immediately. Chapter 282. The battle reached a point where it turned into a verbal clash at the village entrance. No, still nothing. Could it be that Captain Zhengya of the Central Continent team, really? The two women, Zhanlan and Ying Kong, searched every corner of the 15th floor but still found no trace of Captain Zhengya. What should we do? Without our captain, the remaining members of the Central Continent team are practically useless. It turned out there was also a Chu Xian, and the two couldn't help but shed tears. We can't all become Subai's slaves, can we? While we might be able to save our lives, if the Central Continent team is left empty, who knows when we can regain our former glory? However, Subai from the demon team seemed to be quite casual and not bloodthirsty. Zhanlan widened her eyes, looking at Ying Kong in disbelief. Could it be that you've fallen for him? The two locked eyes and turned red at the same time. Subai showed no interest in the conversation of the two women. Continuing to produce new weapons is his current ambition. His goal is to dominate, to be the ultimate ruler. The autonomous bomb is ready. The autonomous bomb is ready. The autonomous bomb is ready. 70 or 80 round automatic bombs have arrived at the 15th level. Subai praised. Very good. This type of autonomous bomb has a natural advantage over suicide trucks. It can explode repeatedly. These vehicles are not loaded with dirty bombs, but with energy-absorbing shock explosives. This technology comes from a certain faction's flanking unit and belongs to a special category of combat drones. They have a fast movement speed and are immune to mind control and viral radiation. Most importantly, Subai has built 5 acceleration towers at the entrance to the 16th level underground palace. When these autonomous bombs pass through the acceleration towers, they will receive a buff that increases their movement speed by 60. With this boost, combined with their inherent speed, catching up to these round robots would be impossible without 4 legs. They are very suitable for surprise attacks. At the center of the 16th level underground palace, a huge explosion occurred. Flames and frost formed a massive canopy-like wall, effectively blocking the path of attack. The troops temporarily halted. However, the enemy, composed of dual-element ice and fire beings, surprisingly ignored this wall, crossing through to continue their assault. The various squads that had previously rested, encouraged by successive victories, regrouped and returned to the 15th level. In a display of loyalty, each dispatched 10,000 troops to support Subai. Although they did not step into the 16th level to participate in frontline combat, the show of force was quite impressive. However, Upon witnessing the battle at the 16th level, everyone fell silent. It was frustrating how each level seemed to be more difficult than the last, with the difficulty at least doubling. The key issue was that the enemy had now sealed off another ice fire wall, leaving uncertainty about whether there were traps behind it. A million-strong army was waiting, possibly hidden mechanisms that were hard to decipher. More importantly, visually assessing this ice fire wall, just the ice wall alone had at least tens of billions in health points. It would take an eternity to break through. Even if they managed to destroy this wall, there was still a silent firewall behind it, with a thickness of a staggering 1 kilometer. Even if the troops were fire-resistant, they would be reduced to ashes before reaching the center. It's quite troublesome. Meanwhile, a deep voice came from behind the ice firewall. Subai, aren't you supposed to be strong? Aren't you invincible and charging forward? Come over here. Come over here. Ahaha. Ahaha. Another voice was even more sinister. I can hit you, but you can't hit me. Aren't you angry? Aren't you angry? I'm going to drive you crazy, making you anxious and pulling your hair out, banging your head against the wall. If you can't come over, I'm going to spank you. Ahaha. Subai. It's been a long time since I've encountered such a humorous enemy. The captains of various teams, however, were somewhat on edge. Each of them was an elite among elites, having slain countless demons and beasts. How could there be a monster that spoke like this in front of them? Moreover, it was provoking them right in front of the demon team leader, Subai. This was not just hitting Subai's backside. It was clearly slapping the faces of all the team leaders. Thus, they also began to curse back. You two sneaky rats. If you have guts, come out and fight us for real. Hiding behind that wall is nothing heroic. Exactly. All you can do is talk big from there. If you have the ability, come out and let me teach you how to behave. Do you think this wall can stop us? Once we break through and beat you until you beg for mercy, you'll see. Oomph. How dare you mock our leader Subai? You should take a look at yourselves. What are you even? Once we get in there, we'll twist your heads off and use them as balls to kick. Keep being smug over there. Soon enough, you'll be crying. If you have guts, don't run. Once we break this ice fire wall, you'll experience what despair really means. You can just enjoy your little verbal sparring for now. When we charge in, just wait for your doom. The captains were all shouting at once, their faces flushed with anger, wishing they could rush through the ice fire wall and tear those two enemies apart. In fact, behind the ice fire wall, the king of flame demons and the ancient ice beast were merely stalling for time. One side was continuously summoning troops to reinforce their defense, while the other began to cast spells, using the Dead Sea Scrolls. Since the Dead Sea Scrolls were 4 meters long, it would take at least 2 hours to read through every single word. Of course, all this effort would be worth it once the chanting was complete. After all, the power contained in the Dead Sea Scrolls was cataclysmic. The two took turns reading a line of incantation and cursing, ensuring they both kept cursing in sync. If only one of them cursed, they feared the other would guess that they were stalling for time. Subai listened to the verbal battle between the two sides and couldn't help but laugh. He never expected that the conflict would devolve into a shouting match at the village entrance. Perhaps this was a return to simplicity. However, through the exchange of insults, Subai also discovered a problem. The ice fire wall was definitely not created by the two bosses behind it, but rather by the soldiers under his command. In other words, it was produced by the soldiers they had summoned. The reason was simple, not to mention the ice wall, just the seemingly endless fire wall. How could it remain unextinguished without continuous spellcasting? There must be soldiers behind it casting sustained magic. Otherwise, these two wouldn't have the opportunity to argue with him. Chapter 283. Is the power of Apocalypse strong? Subai deployed the Enrager support vehicle to the front line, attempting to see if it could interfere with the enemies across the ice fire wall. Unfortunately, the attack range of the Enrager support vehicle was simply insufficient, and the enemies kept pouring out through the ice fire wall, requiring continuous clearing. At that moment, Kong approached Subai and said, "This ice fire wall can be breached. Continuing this verbal battle is just a waste of time. I have thought of a method. The ice fire wall is divided into an outer ice wall and an inner fire wall. We can concentrate all our forces to attack the ice wall. As long as we break through the ice wall, you can summon the divine sword of ice Azeroth, Frostmourne, to create a safe passage through it." Subai pondered for a moment and agreed, that is possible. But you should ask Athena, who can summon the Golden Warriors. If she is willing to expend her energy to provide me with funding. He then looked up towards the distance. Athena was slumped over the table, her legs weak, sweating profusely, with her tongue out and eyes glazed over, clearly exhausted. She noticed Subai's gaze and forced a smile. "Don't let my soldiers end up in your recovery station again," Subai said with a shrug. "What can we do? The one providing the funds can't hold on any longer. Charging in recklessly like this is not a solution." Kong frowned. "So what do you suggest?" Subai shot Kong a glare, who lowered his head. "Then what should I say, Master?" Subai smiled. The wise have their strategies. Based on Subai's judgment, as long as they could disrupt the casters behind the ice fire wall, they could use the fan wind raccoon disruption vehicle to break it down. Of course, There was no need to produce too many. Just a symbolic production of 10 or so lined up would suffice to test if the units behind the wall could be disrupted. Even if they failed, it wouldn't matter. After all, this is an experiment with low investment and high returns. If it doesn't work, we can force our way through. Adjust the armored vehicle factory. Suspend tank production. Click on the Raccoon interference vehicle. A few minutes later, the armored vehicle was assembled and came off the production line. Subai checked it out. Raccoon interference vehicle. Power, 20. Agility, 40,000. Defense, 250,000. Health, 400,000. Special attribute. Releases interference waves to disable enemy electronic devices, causing code errors and confusion, with a medium interference range, capable of detecting invisible units. After reading the description, Subai took a breath. Wait, what? I remembered it wrong. It turns out it can only interfere with electronic devices. Then, if there is an enemy biological mage behind the wall casting an ice and fire wall, wouldn't that be useless? On the other side, the Lord of Flames and the ancient ice beast had finished their incantation. In the void, for knights slowly approached. Was it you two who opened the dimensional gate? Summoned us? The Lord of Flames and the ancient ice beast exchanged glances and then knelt down. Oh, great apocalypse. It is I who summoned you. Now our multiverse races are in danger. Humans are launching a massive attack. Can we borrow your powers to eliminate them? The four horsemen of the apocalypse snorted at the mention of humans. In ancient times, the Blue Star civilization, having come from the abyssal demon realm, once ruled the entire West. All humans were their slaves. However, when their conquest reached the East, they were suppressed by the Xianyuan sword wielded by the Yin Huang, driving them back to the demon realm. They sealed them away in the distant Dead Sea galaxy beyond the Milky Way using the divine power left by Nuwa. However, the demon realm has the power to traverse freely. The remaining Dead Sea Scrolls serve as the final seal. If opened, the apocalypse will descend. You two are lucky. In our eyes, you have already become lifeless. Fortunately, you informed us about the humans, so you two won't die for now. After all, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, having conquered countless universes, only suffered setbacks at the hands of the human Emperor Yin. Their desire for revenge is extremely intense. The Lord of Flames and the ancient ice beast trembled in fear at the imposing words of the four horsemen. Please, the four celestial beings, urgently deploy your forces. The situation is dire. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, in black, red, green, and yellow, each have their own characteristics. The Red Knight represents war. Standing about 35 meters tall, forged from mysterious metal, clad in heavy armor covered with spikes and metal plates, with both hands holding a massive red blood axe. Its blade gleaming coldly, a giant magical cannon looms behind, showcasing incredible power. The Green Knight of Plague stands at 3 meters tall, its dark green metallic body emitting an eerie glow, surrounded by a faint toxic mist. Its unique helmet features numerous small holes that continuously release green poison gas. Clad in a tight red metallic battlesuit filled with pipes and containers brimming with lethal plague viruses, small nozzles along the edges can release toxic gas at any moment. It wields a magic staff topped with a green gem capable of unleashing plague magic, summoning poisonous fog to weaken enemies or triggering a plague storm. The Yellow Knight of Famine towers at approximately 32 meters, its dark yellow metallic body presenting a withered texture, riddled with cracks and damage. Wearing a tattered hood, its pale, emaciated face is highlighted by yellow, hungry eyes that flicker. It holds a curved scythe, its blade infused with magical power capable of reaping life and summoning spirits of hunger to inflict endless starvation and weakness upon foes. The Black Knight of Death stands at around 34 meters, its golden black metallic body radiating a chilling light, inscribed with mysterious death runes, exuding an air of imperiousness. Armed with a gigantic black longsword, its sharp blade, enhanced by magical power, can sever life connections and summon shadows of death to envelop enemies, instilling fear of demise. These four horsemen of the apocalypse each possess attributes exceeding 1,000,000. They are immensely powerful. Step aside, for shadows move as fast as lightning. The ground is scattered with various tainted energies. They arrive at the front line, a wall of ice and fire. Surprisingly, there is not just one human, but a group. The War Knight is eager for action. He chuckles, glancing not at the battle but at the plague. How about this? You control death, I control war. And let the two of them deal with the humans. We can return to rule over the realms. What do you think? He turns to look at the direction of the Flame Demon King and the Ancient Ice Beast. Indeed, in the demon realm, we are merely minor characters. In this parallel universe of countless realms, who besides those humans can rival us brothers? In truth, among the four horsemen, only plague and famine are true denizens of the demon realm. War and death are constructs they created. They belong to mechanical magical life forms, or rather, robots. Chapter 284. The raccoon jamming vehicle displays its might. No matter how strong you are, if disrupted, you can only lose power. The raccoon jamming vehicles are lined up in formation, with some troops providing protection against the incoming ice and fire entities. Subai is ready to give it a try. Suddenly, the continuous wall of ice and fire is abruptly severed. A massive typhoon of over level 10 sweeps through. Frost melts, flames blaze. Everything turns to nothingness. The essence of death arrives in an instant. With a thunderous roar, the frontline troops perish in battle. There was no time to ponder what had happened. Looking again at the mixed support vehicles of the furious fighters, they too were lifted into the air, perishing in a fiery explosion. In the distance, two steel warriors, one red and one black, hovered like deities. The return of the kings revealed that we, the humans, were like mere insects hiding here. We are among the four horsemen of the apocalypse, war and death. It seemed like a show of bravado. But the leaders of the various reincarnation squads had already been stirred up from the earlier skirmish. They longed to kick down the ice-fire wall and send troops to directly crush the enemies behind it. Unfortunately, it was impossible to do so. To their surprise, the enemy actively dismantled the ice-fire wall. What were they waiting for? Someone shouted, "Is this a show of bravado? Let us take them down." Golden light burst forth. Hundreds of thousands of elite troops soared through the air, rushing towards war and death like a tidal wave. Countless dazzling spells and various flashy weapons flew towards them. Amidst the overwhelming onslaught, even the ice-fire soldiers stationed in front suffered heavy casualties. War and death sneered, completely unaware of the gravity of the situation. "Die!" War roared, swinging his blood axe violently, sending a massive red energy wave sweeping forward. Wherever the energy wave passed, the ground cracked, and the air seemed to ignite. The elite troops charging ahead were instantly blasted away by this powerful force, with many losing their lives midair. The massive magical artillery behind them began to unleash its power, firing shells containing terrifying destructive force that exploded upon impact. Each explosion took countless lives, plunging the once formidable troops into chaos. At the same time, Death raised his enormous black sword, its death runes glowing with an eerie light. With a gentle swing of his sword, he summoned countless shadows of death, which swiftly enveloped the army like ghosts. The soldiers shrouded in shadows felt an irresistible fear of death, their bodies stiffening as their life force was gradually drained away. Death swung his sword again, releasing a black energy wave that resonated with War's red energy wave. Wherever this black energy wave spread, life withered away instantly. Both magic and weapons appeared feeble in the face of this deathly power. Under the combined assault of war and death, the hundreds of thousands of troops were easily crushed like ants. The battlefield fell into a deathly silence, with members of the summoned squads standing in disbelief, their faces filled with incredulity. How is this possible? Our army was defeated so easily. Those two knights are simply monsters. We had no power to fight back at all. Compared to them, the battles we fought before seemed like child's play. The crowd's gaze unconsciously shifted to the strongest demon team leader, Su Bai, in the reincarnation squad. They couldn't help but start comparing Su Bai's strength with that of the two knights. Although Captain Su Bai was powerful, facing these two terrifying knights seemed to leave some team members hesitant, unable to voice their thoughts. No matter how strong Captain Su Bai is, he can't possibly withstand such an attack, someone whispered. At that moment, Su Bai wore an expressionless face, seemingly indifferent to the situation. Seeing his expression, everyone assumed he was afraid, concluding that the four horsemen of the apocalypse were stronger and that Su Bai could not compete with them. This conclusion plunged everyone into despair, as they didn't know how to face such a formidable enemy. However, after a moment, Su Bai let out a sigh of relief. Aren't these two horsemen just robots? That makes things easier. Everyone had already evacuated the battlefield, leaving Su Bai standing alone in front. War and Death felt curious. Human, aren't you afraid of dying? Just now, that army of hundreds of thousands was wiped out in an instant. Why are you not afraid? Su Bai smiled and replied. It seems I accidentally created a useless raccoon interference. I thought I could break through this wall of ice and fire. Looks like I really made a mistake. War and Death burst into laughter. Human, summarizing your experiences before you die is useless. After you die, you'll have plenty of time to continue learning from your failures. Su Bai then lifted his head. It seems you didn't understand what I meant. Raccoon interference vehicle, lock on. Two beams of bluish-green light suddenly shot out, without any warning. What are you doing? Like a power outage, the two mechas lowered their heads, losing their power. The interference was successful. Meanwhile, Plague and Famine returned to the 16th floor mansion. Welcome back, Immortal. The two immortals from the demon realm questioned. Can humans be exterminated? Plague and Famine remained silent, while the Lord of Flame demons and the ancient ice beast exchanged confused glances. After a while, Famine began to speak. In this multiverse battlefield, who is the ruler? Of course, it's you two, along with the demon lord on the 18th floor. But let me tell you, in our demon realm. Countless parallel worlds and myriad races are just ants. Now I present you with two choices. One is to die immediately, and the other is to pledge loyalty to us. The Lord of Flame Demons and the Ancient Ice Beast were distraught. The gifts from the Demon Lord were too formidable, and using them would even devour the Master. Both choices seemed to lead to death. They were about to blurt out their choice. Famine and Plague unexpectedly knelt down, continuously bowing towards the 18th floor of the Demon Palace, as if pounding garlic. A familiar voice rang out. I had long anticipated that the creatures from the demon realm had heavy ambitions, but fortunately, the Dead Sea Scrolls had the blood seal for control. These guys couldn't escape my grasp or my control. You too, if you had to choose just now, what would you choose? The King of Flame Demons and the Ancient Ice Beast were momentarily startled, taking a second to regain their composure. We, of course, pledge our loyalty to you. Lord Demon King, just now, we firmly opposed it, preferring death. We will protect you. The Demon King snorted coldly. Now, cooperate with these two Apocalypse Knights and launch an all-out attack. Understood. Chapter 285. The unmanned bombs block the enemy's assault like the Great Wall. Unmanned robots, magical weaponry. Subai looked at the Death Knight and the War Knight, gently tapping their armor twice. Surprisingly, it made no sound. How strange. Release all the engineers from each faction. Everyone who can transform these two robots into our units. Whether it's changing the circuitry or reprogramming the system, let's brainstorm together. A group of engineers began to closely examine the two Apocalypse Knights. Some even pulled out various measuring instruments and high-tech gadgets, continuously testing. Especially, an engineer from the Rising Sun Empire surprisingly took out nanobot robots, attempting to enter the armor of these two robots to alter the system firmware code. 16th floor fortress level. Looking at the kneeling Plague Knight and Famine Knight, the Flame Demon King and the Ancient Ice Beast were still shaken. They let out a sigh. Damn it, just now, they dared to threaten me. The Ancient Ice Beast went up and slapped the Famine Knight across the face with a large icy palm. The Flame Demon King even took out a fiery whip and lashed at the Plague Knight. You damn plague. My flames can extinguish poison. You almost got me in trouble by showing off in front of me. No matter how hard they hit, the two Apocalypse Knights remained unmoved. Instead, the Flame Demon King and the Ancient Ice Beast's hands and feet began to ache. Sitting back on their icy fiery throne, the Flame Demon King pointed at the two and said, "Aren't you both very impressive? Why haven't the other two knights returned?" The Apocalypse Knight slowly raised its head. The other two are robots controlled by me and Famine. Robots? Infused with magical power, they are under my command. Famine brings war. Plague brings death. We are inseparable companions. The Ancient Ice Beast took a deep breath. You really are something. Stop with the rhymes and tell me, have those two robots already broken through Subai's army? 20 minutes ago, those two robots went offline. Offline? Were they defeated? I'm not sure. If they are defeated, the energy of the magic core will cease, and we will receive a signal. For now, those two signals remain intact. This response left the Flame Demon King and the Ancient Ice Beast at a loss. In any case, we should hurry to deploy our troops, coordinate our efforts, and deal with Subai. The two discussed that they had indeed seen the power of the four horsemen of the apocalypse before. In just 15 minutes, they had wiped out hundreds of thousands of troops. With their own coordination, it should be manageable. Returning to Subai's side, the War and Death Knights were transported to the command center via transport vehicles. The engineer provided Subai with an answer. After testing, the systems carried by these two robots were completely incomprehensible to them. The commands driving the robots' actions were neither in English nor Chinese. They resembled ancient Egyptian or Sumerian, but were actually something else entirely, making translation impossible. Without the ability to grasp these commands, they could not modify them, and without modifications, controlling the two apocalypse warriors was out of the question. The engineer's answer left Subai somewhat disappointed. Watching those two robots display their overwhelming power was reminiscent of the Space Knights in Japanese anime, like the colorful cannons of Freedom Gundam. What a pity. The engineer from the Soviet forces stroked his thick mustache. General, according to our Soviet military, there's nothing that can't be disassembled and resolved. We can take it apart, study what we need, and arm our own equipment with it. This will effectively enhance our strength. As soon as the Soviet engineer proposed this suggestion, he was immediately met with opposition from the Allied engineers. That's too primitive and violent. We should analyze it carefully through computers. The scientists from the Rising Sun Empire also weighed in. Exactly, robots are a man's romance. If you dismantle it, how can a man have romance anymore? Subai asked the Allied engineers and the Rising Sun scientists, do you have a better solution? We can only study it slowly. Research is a day-to-day endeavor. Subai nodded, considering the current situation. There were four horsemen of the apocalypse. Among them, he controlled these two, but the other two still posed a significant threat. If they were to engage them head-on, the damage would certainly be considerable. Furthermore, They were currently in an underground palace where the use of offensive superweapons was prohibited. The reason was simple. They were 16 layers underground, and Subai did not want to create too much noise and risk destroying the palace. If he caused a commotion, he might never escape. However, conventional weapons would allow for point-to-point combat without causing massive destruction. With this in mind, Subai agreed with the Soviet engineer's proposal. All right, you take the lead and dismantle them. At that moment, a surge of alternating hot and cold air rushed toward them from a distance. He looked up. The Ice and Fire Army has regrouped, preparing for a counterattack. Moreover, this time they have added more powerful ice and fire beings, each standing over 10 meters tall. This does not bode well, Subai said slowly. Following Subai, Ing Kong pouted, as if to say that he was the real newcomer. Subai did not respond to this remark. Instead, he raised his hand. The prepped walking bombs surged forth like wild horses, their speed astonishing. In the blink of an eye, these bombs dispersed the alternating waves of hot and cold air, leaving no trace behind. Buzzing sounds filled the air, accompanied by a series of roars as the walking bombs rushed forward like motorcycles, reaching the enemy in an instant. They formed an impregnable line of defense, creating a formidable barrier that successfully held the enemy in place. Soon after, these walking bombs began to self-detonate, producing deafening explosions that enveloped the entire cave in smoke. In an instant, countless ice and fire beings were annihilated by the terrifying shockwaves, vanishing without a trace. The morale of the various squads, previously low, was revived upon witnessing the battle ahead. The spirits that were swept down by the enemy moments ago had been restored. Subai's ambush proved to be highly effective. Victory might still be on our side. Athena and Li Kaitang felt a twinge of jealousy. Not being of the Huang bloodline, they found it humiliating that they could not catch Subai's eye. It was truly a great insult to them. How sad and frustrating. Especially since Subai had eliminated both the War and Death Knights without losing a single soldier. This was undoubtedly a display of previously hidden strength. Their perception of Subai had elevated once again. Throughout history, beautiful women often meet unfortunate ends. Sigh. In the next life, I must be a person of this land. Chapter 286. Knight of Revelation servicing the Revelation tank. No problem, right? Although the front lines have stabilized for now, Subai knew that famine and plague had yet to make their move. The real tough battles had not even begun. At this moment, an engineer rushed over, panting. General Subai, we have completed the disassembly. After thorough discussions and the efforts of all the scientists, we found that the most crucial component within the War Knight and Death Knight is the magical core. This magical core is quite extraordinary. Even an ordinary machine can turn into a deadly weapon once equipped with this core. Oh, interesting. Go on, Subai urged. Furthermore, these magical cores require magical energy infusion. If you can summon the mages of the Undead Legion and channel energy into them, perhaps we could mass-produce them. A glimmer of hope sparked in Subai's eyes. Wow, there are so many twists and turns. Sure, but specifically how to operate it requires dark energy magic, preferably with undead farmer knights who can offer their lives as sacrifices. This way, we can quickly mass-produce the magical cores. I suggest equipping them onto the Doomsday tanks developed by the Ural Laboratory. After all, these big guys can withstand the test. Subai took a breath. In the army, life is cheap, and sacrificing lives is as easy as drinking water. All right, I got it. I will start producing the Knight Doomsday tanks now, and you focus on the modifications. Understood. Subai turned his attention inward to his stone sea. The undead were still curled up in a section of his mind, not mingling with other factions. After all, space was limited. Subai also did not create many undead troops, given the outdated version. Even if produced, they would only provide experience. He clicked on the Great Tomb to create farmers and continued clicking on the other side, the Army Vehicle Factory. At this point, Subai paused. He had forgotten to ask whether to manufacture the second-generation or third-generation Doomsday tanks. He decided to produce 20 of each. The front line was at a standstill, and the Demon King of Flames and the Ancient Ice Beast could clearly sense the power of Subai's latest units. These spheres of energy operated on a hard-hitting exchange strategy. Damn it. Although the casualty rate was high, the exchange clearly favored the opponent. If this continued, no matter how many troops he had, they wouldn't be enough against the enemy's attacks. Are you two ready? We can't wait any longer. Just in case we repeat the mistakes of the War Knights and Death Knights. This time, the Demon King of Flames and the Ancient Ice Beast did not let these two fight personally. Instead, they summoned their respective troops to win through numbers. After all, they came from the Demon Realm, and the troops they called forth were surely stronger than the ice and fire beings. They didn't need to be much stronger. Just enough to defeat Subai would suffice. All right, the Plague Knight removed his mask and exhaled a cloud of green poisonous mist ahead. In the hazy atmosphere, countless soul devourer plague demons emerged, numbering in the hundreds of thousands. They resembled humanoid demons, shrouded in swirling dark green poison mist, exuding a foul odor. The poison mist possessed a strong corrupting power. Contact with it would rapidly rot the skin, dissolve flesh, and instantly turn victims into skeletons. It could also absorb the soul power of creatures killed by the poison mist, enhancing its own strength, with the mist becoming denser and its attack power continuously increasing. They moved like harbingers of death. Where they passed, life withered, and everything perished, leaving only bones behind. Meanwhile, the Famine Knight transformed his left hand into sand, which scattered with the wind, slowly forming his own army of famine soul beasts, also numbering in the hundreds of thousands. The figure is enormous, resembling a small mountain. With a body as dry as wood, skin mottled and dark yellow like desert rocks, and eyes glinting with a strange light that reveals hunger and madness. It possesses a terrifying ability to consume, with a gaping mouth like a bottomless pit that can instantly devour everything around it, including steel fortresses, war machines, and living beings. The energy of the consumed can be converted into its own strength. It can also unleash a curse of famine, causing the curse to fall into a state of hunger, weakening their bodies, reducing their combat effectiveness, and rapidly spreading the curse. They can absorb the life force of cursed enemies to enhance themselves, continuously upgrading the curse's power. The surface of its body is covered with a hard, keratinous layer, providing formidable defense against most attacks. Even when heavily injured, it can quickly recover thanks to its immense vitality and self-repairability. In battle, it acts like a hunger demon, rampaging through, leaving desolation and despair in its wake, bringing relentless consumption of life and deep torment of souls. Now, these two creatures from the demon realm, there is no one in your world who can rival them. I won't introduce their attributes, just hurry up and deploy the troops. At the same time, the King of Flame Demons and the Ancient Ice Beast will personally don their armor and join the fray. I want to see Subai die with my own eyes. 2 hours later, the original army of ice and fire had dwindled to fewer than 2,000. At this moment, strange phenomena appeared in the distance, with decay and drought wherever they went. Indeed, what was meant to come had arrived. It was the Plague Knight and the Famine Knight. Two adorable creatures in red and blue stood beside them. From behind, the soul-eating plague demon and the famine-devouring beast radiated their powerful energies, surging from both sides. For a moment, they managed to halt the advance of Subai's bomb formation and even pushed back against it. Seeing this scene, Subai quickly mobilized the rear troops for artillery support. He knew that something big was about to happen. In less than 5 minutes, the self-propelled bomb formation had been shattered. These two monsters were incredibly formidable, especially the famine-devouring beast, which even consumed bombs. Even when they exploded in their bellies, they showed no fear. The reverse magic eggs left after the explosion had not even fully hatched before being turned into a pool of green water by the toxic gas emitted by the soul-eating plague demon. If Subai had not captured the Death Knight and the War Knight at that time, he would definitely have perished in the 16th layer of the Demon Palace. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse were too powerful. Now, it was time for them to experience the true power of the apocalypse. Subai asked the engineer beside him, "Are we all set?" The second generation of the Apocalypse and the third generation of the Apocalypse have been modified and are ready to launch at any time. Alright, activate all of them. Charge in and strike hard. On the other side, enjoying the advantage of war, the Plague Knight and the Famine Knight suddenly froze, momentarily stunned in place. Attack. Hit them hard. What are you waiting for? You two fools. The Knight of Famine looked incredulous. It turned out that there were only 2 signals from the magical cores, and now, there were an additional 40. Huh, what does this mean? Is something big about to come? Chapter 287. Apocalypse versus Apocalypse. Or is the tank more impressive? Whether something big is coming or not, Subai didn't know. However, he was aware that the Apocalypse tanks produced in a rush before him had undergone a complete transformation after being equipped with magical cores. The original Apocalypse tank from the classic game was now entirely different. It had absorbed all the characteristics of the War Knight. Not only was its armor fully reinforced, but multiple magical cannons were mounted on the sides and back of the tank, allowing for all-around fire coverage. These magical cannons were not only powerful, but also fired rapidly, leaving enemies with no place to escape. The Apocalypse tank, which absorbed features from the Death Knight in another version of the game, had become even more exaggerated. The meat grinder at the front of the tank was now pitch black, adorned with sickle-like death wings. When it charged, it unleashed a terrifying shadow of death, with countless undead spirits wandering within. These spirits could not only interfere with the enemy's electronic devices, causing chaos in their communications and command, but also inflicted damage that disregarded defenses, drastically reducing the enemy's combat effectiveness and fear. In urgent situations, the undead spirits could self-destruct, unleashing a massive explosion that would cause significant damage to surrounding enemies, capable of destroying large groups of enemy units and structures. With a single command from Subai, the original troops retreated 5 kilometers. 40 Apocalypse tanks, led by the Apocalypse from the other game, advanced in a wave-like formation. Soon, the meat grinder at the front had plunged into the formation of the Famine Soul Eaters. As usual, these giant beasts rushed forward en masse, quickly surrounding the Apocalypse tanks and attempting to gnaw at the metal. However, after being infused with magical cores, the Apocalypse tanks were enveloped in a layer of magical power, rendering the Famine Soul Eaters' bites completely ineffective. Instead, the meat grinder was stained blood red, as chunks of enemies were pulled inside and ground into paste before being flung out. Even so, the famished Famine Soul Eaters continued to charge tirelessly at the Apocalypse tanks. Gradually, layers of Black Death shadows began to spread around the tanks. Within the shadows, it seemed that skeletal undead were stealthily approaching the Famine Soul Eaters. Withered hands swiftly tore into the skin of the Famine Soul Eaters, directly penetrating their surface. A mouthful of flesh was extracted, and the undead began to feast heartily. As the predator, the Hunger Soul Beast has now become the prey of these undead. Ignoring defenses, it can penetrate through the surface and seize flesh and blood. At this moment, the gluttonous Hunger Soul Beast finally realizes what it means to be the top predator on the battlefield. In the eyes of the apocalyptic tank, they are merely the hunted. With a wail, the pack of Hunger Soul Beasts retreats. Meanwhile, the soul-devouring plague also suffers a fatal blow from the apocalyptic tank of Red Alert 2. The extra magical artillery unleashes pink shockwaves, reminiscent of the Kamehameha wave from Dragon Ball. Under the attack of such artillery, plagues and viruses are instantly obliterated. Even the air, due to the effects of the magical canister, is filled with high-temperature ions, burning with the smell of ozone. Seeing that the opponent relies solely on ranged attacks, the soul-devouring plague immediately forms a poison fog wall 1 kilometer wide in front. Anyone who enters this poison fog will have their metal corroded into liquid. However, the apocalyptic tank remains undaunted and charges straight in. The magical core activates, and a layer of red magical armor forms on the tank's exterior, isolating it from the toxic damage. Following that comes a series of violent roars and the sound of shells whizzing through the air. Watching as these 40 riders manage to turn the tide, the members of each squad begin to cheer again. The Flame Demon King and the Ancient Ice Beast are equally speechless, shocked that such a small force could reverse the situation. After a while, they manage to stammer out a few words. Why, how could this be? The Hunger Beast responds in disbelief. How is this possible? How could humans master magic? The plague is also taken aback. Even if they encountered a magical race and obtained the magical cores of the 2 apocalyptic warriors of war and death, it would still be impossible to create new magical soldiers, unless they possess a complete magical unit system and one related to the necromantic realm. At this point, both of them gasp. Could it be that he possesses the undead race that has been expelled from the demon realm? Among all the myriad races, only the undead of Azeroth have some connection to the demon realm. Their ancestors originally lived in the demon realm but were expelled, which is why they descended into the myriad worlds. Due to the influence of the myriad worlds, the undead race has become weaker with each generation, now being the weakest branch of the demon realm. Yet even so, they are ingrained with the genes of the demon realm and could potentially create a magical core if they had a complete set of undead soldiers. However, the undead race has long since been lost. In this short period, that human, how did they learn to make this? I can't figure it out at all. Of course, it's not just those two. Even Su by himself might not understand it fully. This is largely thanks to his team of engineers. No, we must stop them. If we retreat to the 17th level, we will surely face severe punishment from the Demon Lord. You, Famine, and Plague, you need to hold them off. Famine and Plague shook their heads. No, if the opponent has 2, 3, or even 4 vehicles, we might still have a chance. But now he has 40, which is equivalent to having 40 powerful warriors. We can't fight against so many. 2 of us would have to take on 20 each. Even with you 2 added, each of us would need to handle 10. Do we have that capability? Of course we do. These 4 R&T like the legendary martial artist who can take on 10 alone. A moment of silence fell. However, during this silence, the forces of Plague and Famine had already been almost completely decimated by Su Bai's tanks. With a loud boom, a massive breach was created in the barrier. The magical shield shattered instantly. There was no way around it. The dual-barreled cannons of the tanks were incredibly powerful. They couldn't withstand it. Not even with the magical shield. Dust and smoke filled the air, covering Famine and Plague. The Ancient Ice Beast was also covered in it. Except for the Flame Demon King, which was composed of burning magma, everything else was buried in dust. A dead horse is better than a live one. Let us go all out. After all, we're dead either way. He drew the whip of the Flame Demon and smashed it down, creating a fissure several kilometers long. Magma surged out. Let us attack together. Chapter 288. The Demon Palace, Level 17, Complex Terrain. Su Bai begins preparations. The Plague Knight spewed a cloud of poison and leaped down first to take the lead. Then the Famine Knight followed suit. The ancient ice beast stomped its right foot on the ground and quickly sealed the broken barrier with ice. Then jumped down to engage Su Bai's tanks in the final battle. After landing, the Famine Knight was instantly turned to dust by the cannon fire. There was nothing to be done. The power disparity was too great. The ancient ice beast unleashed a wall of ice to fend off the cannon fire. Its right hand lifted several shards of ancient ice and hurled them at the tank group. Unfortunately, these attacks barely tickled the tank's defenses. Only the Plague Knight, drifting in the air, could barely hold on. However, he too could not escape the tank's missile defense. In no time, both the Plague Knight and Famine Knight were annihilated. The world would no longer speak of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Instead, it was Su Bai's apocalypse tank that achieved the remarkable feat of bombarding the Demon Palace. An ancient ice beast was directly crushed into paste by an oncoming third-generation apocalypse tank. The sight was horrifying. At this point, the 16th level of the Demon Palace had completely fallen. Kill the ancient ice beast to obtain 5 layers of Xianbing armor. Note, when the temperature is below 16 degrees, all units will gain 5 layers of Xianbing armor for defense. Each layer can absorb 100,000 damage, totaling 5 layers. Cooldown time is 2 hours. Additionally, when enemy attacks hit friendly units with Xianbing armor, they will be slowed by cold ice, reducing attack speed by 35 and movement speed by 25. This effectively increases health. Although the conditions are somewhat harsh, being below 16 degrees, if I unleash Frostmourne and freeze the world, wouldn't that eliminate the conditions? Coupled with the 300,000 damage reduction from the magical shield, my overall army now has a whopping 800,000 damage reduction. Combined with troop types having hundreds of thousands to millions of health, the improvement is significant. This survivability is practically doubled. Next, I will continue to station troops on the 16th level and then assault the 17th level. The Flame Demon King, witnessing the current grim situation, was so frightened that he didn't dare to engage personally in a fight with Su Bai, especially seeing his good brother, the ancient ice beast, crushed into paste by the enemy's vehicle. This death was too tragic. He must escape, even if it means returning to be beheaded by the Demon Lord. It is better than dying such a miserable death. At the last line of defense between the 16th and 17th levels, the Flame Demon King summoned his last bit of power to conjure a massive volcano. The volcano erupted, and lava surged, forming a wide river of flames around him. This could temporarily block the pursuers. He let out a breath and prepared to enter the 17th level. At this moment, he noticed a figure ahead. It didn't look human. Who are you? The shadow slowly approached, fully clad in high-tech armor and wielding a laser sword. Celestial? Paladin? I am a high-ranking fire elemental. Are you the reinforcements sent by the Demon Lord? The figure sheathed the laser sword and nodded, stepping forward. Don't be nervous. We are on the same side. How many troops do you have? Su Bai is not easy to deal with. The warriors summoned by the Dead Sea manuscript given by the Demon Lord can't handle him. You must be careful. Of course, the paladin approached the flame demon. In fact, the Dead Sea manuscript is just a low-grade treasure. I possess the highest technology from all realms, and with it, you will surely defeat Su Bai. The figure extended a hand, and a three-dimensional spherical object floated above his palm. What is this? You can just pick it up and see for yourself. The King of Flames had some doubts, but he was already on the brink of death. There was no room for hesitation. He stepped forward and reached out with his left hand to touch the floating orb. To his surprise, it was empty. Furious, he shouted, 3D hologram. Are you messing with me? The paladin smirked and instantly grabbed the King of Flames' arm. Enduring the searing magma, he shouted, possession. In a flash, consciousness surged through him. When he opened his eyes again, the King of Flames had transformed into another person, Long Han Yue, the captain of the Moon's surface team, who possessed the ability to take over bodies. Excellent. The next step was to approach the Demon Lord and seize his body, command the myriad races and defeat Su Bai, and he could become the true ruler of all realms. Meanwhile, since the difficulty of the 16th level was already quite high, Su Bai decided to send a small vanguard team to scout the situation on the 17th level. They would devise corresponding tactics based on the findings. The Wolf assault vehicle carried several teams to the 17th level. This level was vast and entirely different from the previous dark and gloomy underground. Instead, it was resplendent and extraordinarily bright. The terrain here was bizarre and unprecedented, with the sky split between air and ocean. The ground dropped several thousand meters, and some floating islands drifted in the sky, crafted from gold and silver, each shaped like a skull. Streams of magma fell from the sky, while water tornadoes rose to meet them. Upon witnessing this, Su Bai immediately formulated a combat plan to operate both land and naval forces simultaneously. Since there was an ocean in the sky, he would deploy naval forces aloft while stationing conventional troops and air forces on the ground. Choosing the Air Force, he noted that he still had a considerable number of buildings from the Vortex faction. Therefore, he decided to lead with Vortex units. He clicked to build Vortex aircraft, Wind God Pterodactyl, and Bald Eagle attack aircraft. Although the terrain on the 17th level was complex and ground troops would find it challenging to advance, failing to deploy them would leave him vulnerable to aerial assaults, which would be quite uncomfortable. Thus, Subai initiated a large production of the Vortex faction's strongest offensive unit, Mechanical Creation. This unit had immense power, high heavy armor defense, and was equipped with a massive cannon on its back, capable of ultra-long-range strikes, with a wide attack range and long-distance capabilities. Deploying them on crucial mountain peaks would allow him to dominate the entire area. However, there was one flaw. If the quantity is small, the damage won't be high. It is necessary to produce several hundred or even thousands at once. As for the ocean and the sky, the only option is to build warships in the Stone Sea. At that time, I will take the Night Eagle helicopter to the surface and then launch these warships into the sky. For the ocean and the sky, I chose a mix of submarines from one faction, mini-submarines from another, and various advanced submarines from different alliances. The first faction submarines can ensure firepower, while the mini-submarines can perform special operations. The advanced submarines provide mobility, and the others can launch missiles, potentially offering support for ground combat. Chapter 289. The network is set. The forces advance to the Demon Palace level 18. My lord, level 16 has fallen. It's alright. The Ancient Ice Beast and the Fire Demon King are just pawns to buy time. Level 17 is already prepared with a well-established defense network. There are dozens of checkpoints, over 60 layers of defense, and 60 million troops stationed. In fact, up to this point in the battle, the Demon Lord has faced defeat after defeat. His title as the King of all realms has lost its significance. However, during the absence of the Ancient Ice Beast and Fire Demon King, the teleportation altar was activated, and the main attacking forces at the world wall on the ground have all retreated. This includes over 50 million troops, plus the 10 million originally stationed at level 17. Now there are 60 million troops in total. The terrain is treacherous, with marine overlords roaming in the ocean above, while on the ground. Various beasts gather in the mountainous terrain, lava pits, swamps, and toxic mists. Within the suspended fortress, over 1 million troops are hidden. In the rear military stronghold, a mysterious healing spring continuously releases its effects. Attack, defense, and healing are integrated. Subai, you will definitely return empty-handed this time. Boom. Under the path cleared by the advanced tanks, Subai and his main forces finally reached level 17. As soon as they entered, thousands of troops rushed towards them like a flood, with overwhelming momentum. Boom. The advanced tanks fired their dual cannons. Amidst the bloodshed, the ground was plowed with massive craters. Mushroom clouds rose. In the rear, the fierce warriors charged out, braving the storm of attacks. Various slashing and tearing actions stained the ground with blood. Although the numbers seemed small, they were in a crushing momentum. The mixed squads following behind were thrilled by the favorable battle situation. In just a few minutes, the area within a 10-kilometer radius was completely cleared. In the distance, the golden skeleton floating island opened its mouth wide, and hundreds of thousands of flying troops surged forward. The sky and ocean merge, occasionally with icy shards descending. Upon closer inspection, it turns out to be colossal creatures in the sea rolling and expelling icy projectiles. The force of these projectiles is immense. When they hit the ground, they explode and unleash chaotic spherical lightning. Wherever they land, a chain reaction of explosions occurs. It appears dangerous, yet this 17th level truly harbors hidden talents. However, Subai remains calm, wearing a smile and showing no signs of fear. After all, he has invested in building ships. If they are not put to use, wouldn't that be a waste of money? Boarding the Night Eagle helicopter with a flying formation escort, Subai waves his hand. Hundreds of ships soar into the sky ocean, gliding through the air like dragons in the seas, exhilaratingly free. They quickly form a fleet and begin to clear out the aerial enemies striking at the ground. Boom. Torpedoes explode, and the waves surge, causing the sky to darken. Soon, a torrential downpour begins, and amidst the rain, countless enormous beasts descend. The corpses, clearly hit by torpedoes, are left in disarray. Following that, shooting stars streak across the sky, with flaming boulders crashing down towards Subai's position. This battle is earth-shattering. Each squad hides inside Subai's armored vehicles, too afraid to show themselves, praying for a swift victory. With a wave of his hand, 2 massive iron nets descend, the boulders land, but the damage is mitigated. At the same time, radar and psychic detectors pick up the enemy's attack positions. Mechanical constructs are deployed. After receiving orders, the truck-mounted cannons quickly begin their setup. A skyward cannon stands tall and suddenly fires a barrage of shells towards the distant high ground. Amidst the booming sounds, the chaotic rain of fire finally comes to a halt. The Demon Lord and others watch in shock at this scene. Such a fierce scale of battle. Yet Subai and his team manage to withstand it. They do not understand. The cumulative damage from these monsters' attacks amounts to billions per second. In response, the stone giants in the distance aim and continue firing. Hundreds of thousands of them launch fiery projectiles attached to magical bombs with tremendous force. However, this time Subai has no defenses. He launches a nuclear strike, nullifying the entire wave of incoming damage. Following this, a lightning storm ensues, combined with the attacks from the metallic constructs, instantly obliterating the hundreds of thousands of distant stone giants. This is impossible. Even a high-level celestial being would struggle against the 17th level. Yet, Subai has withstood the initial onslaught of artillery fire. It's worth noting that Subai's force is stationed at the 17th level number, less than 10,000. Things have turned upside down and chaotic now. If his troops were fully concentrated, it would be truly terrifying. The Dark Lord is now filled with regret, wishing he had never brought Subai into his lair and lamenting why he didn't forge an alliance with Subai earlier. If he had made Subai his deputy with the title of Lord of all Realms and shared 30% of his interests, there wouldn't be so many problems now. Ancient sages, Wind Demon, Thunderstorm, Reincarnation Sovereign, Titan Echo, you all send troops to support the 17th layer. Subai's stronghold does not mean he can capture it. You all go together, and the losses from the large army are minimal. Holding the ground and even counterattacking is not impossible. As the ground continues to expand, metal creations have also been positioned by Subai on the hills. This allows for full utilization of the terrain to strike at distant enemies. In the skies and seas, the sword-toothed shark demons are still clashing with Subai's navy, devouring many submarines whole. Continue. Attack. Subai's navy is the weakest link. If we defeat his navy, we can gain air superiority. Various marine creatures unleash their skills, turning the sky sea black, blue, and purple, with lightning and flames rolling within. The battle is exceptionally fierce. Boom. One can hear the sound of self-explosions from the belly of the giant toothed shark demon. The mini submarines it just swallowed self-destructed immediately, causing the shark demon to spit out blood as it lost over 2 million health points. Wow, Subai's troops are really ruthless. Even in death, they are relentless. However, the ocean is vast and full of wonders, and the enemy's troop numbers exceed 10 million. Subai's forces simply aren't enough to withstand the assault. Submarines explode, dolphins are torn apart, and the sea turns red with blood. Before long, the enemy starts dropping bombs from above. In the rear, Subai watches the aerial battle, his eyes filled with killing intent. The enemy has deployed so many troops in the sky, beyond imagination. It seems he has been treated with exceptional attention. The battle has not even lasted 2 hours, and the piece of sea territory he tore away in the sky is quickly falling back into enemy hands. If he cannot focus his efforts on the sky sea, any temporary advantage on the ground will completely vanish. Once again boarding the Nighthawk helicopter, Subai releases another wave of mini-submarines, sending these little ones to charge forward. Finally, they manage to fend off the enemy's frantic assault. Subsequently, he pulls out all the resources he had kept in reserve: Shogun battleship, Naginata cruiser, aircraft carrier, dreadnought, and some storm speedboats, though I won't elaborate on those small crafts. This is the remaining force from the last lake battle. The storm speedboats, utilizing their speed advantage, were immediately deployed to the front line, forming an electric fish formation to replace the mini-submarine's defense line. The Night Eagle helicopter landed, and Subai stepped onto the Shogun battleship. Next, the focus would be on naval and aerial combat. "Commander, you called for me?" A Soviet engineer rushed over. "How is the installation of the magic core going?" "With over 30 magic cores produced by the undead monk, they are now ready. According to your allocation, 20 for the army and 10 for the navy. Installation hasn't started yet." Subai nodded. "Let's adjust the allocation. 20 for the navy and 10 for the army. Begin installation now. How long will it take?" 15 minutes. "All right, I need you to assign more personnel. Not just on this Shogun battleship, but also on the nearby dreadnought and aircraft carrier. Arrange for simultaneous installation immediately." "Yes, Commander." The waiting time was tense. The storm speedboats ahead were being dragged underwater by the enemy's deep-sea tentacles, enduring electric shocks. Explosive water splashes surged to the surface. Subai's storm speedboat formation was already riddled with holes. At that moment, the upgrade was complete. In the next instant, the deck beneath Subai's feet began to change. A blood-red aura spread out, and ancient, powerful rune inscriptions surged across the metal surface of the ship like blood. The crimson hull exuded a chilling aura, as if it were a harbinger of war emerging from the depths of hell. The original penetrating cannon had vanished, replaced by formidable magic cannons. With the enhancement of the magic core, the battleship's defenses had significantly improved. A barely noticeable warlike shield enveloped the ship, driving the surrounding forces into a frenzy. Subai couldn't tell how much stronger it had become, but there was no time to understand the capabilities of this Shogun battleship. In the distance, the sea suddenly roared. forming a tsunami over 10 meters high that crashed towards them. On the surface, the giant tooth shark demon greedily eyed Su Bai's remaining forces and locked eyes with him. Thus, both sides stood in confrontation for nearly 30 seconds, seemingly testing their resolve. But Su Bai only glanced at the attributes of the opponent. Giant tooth shark demon. Level: Ocean Overlord. Power: 2. For million agility, 1. 8 million defense, 900. 000. Health: 120 million. Skill: Frenzied Bite. Instantly increases power by 50, causing high physical damage to the target. Skill: Waterblade Impact. Launches high-speed water blades, dealing double the power value and damage. Skill: Deep Sea Concealment. Enters a stealth state. Increases agility by 30. Can launch a surprise attack. Skill: Bloody Roar. Reduces the defense of surrounding enemy units by 20 for 10 seconds. Su Bai retracted his gaze. The giant tooth shark demon laughed. Everyone says Su Bai is invincible, capable of turning the world upside down in this demon palace. But today is no different. Humans are after all humans. Upon encountering a powerful deep-sea lord, they are inherently afraid of confined spaces, lacking even the courage to meet my gaze directly. Just as he finished speaking, before the giant tooth shark demon could finish its words, the cannon of the fortified battleship flashed brightly. 2 brilliant beams of light streaked across the sky like meteors, instantly hitting the giant tooth shark demon. The powerful impact caused towering waves to rise on the sea, and the explosive roar seemed to shatter the entire sky and sea. The massive body of the giant tooth shark demon trembled violently, and its health instantly dropped by over 10 million. Its eyes widened, filled with shock and anger. Before it could react, a third shot followed closely. This shot accurately hit the mouth of the giant tooth shark demon, and the terrifying power erupted within, shattering half of its iron-like teeth in an instant. These 3 shots directly reduced the giant tooth shark demon's health by 13 million. Kill for me. The giant tooth shark demon was taken aback, not expecting Su Bai to suddenly become so formidable. It hurriedly dove back into the sea. At the same time, seeing the giant tooth shark demon searching for its teeth in the ocean, Su Bai was also shocked. He didn't expect the fortified battleship to be this powerful. Checking the attributes: Shogun Battleship. Level: Invincible Overlord of Imperial Naval Warfare. Power: 12 million agility, 8 million defense, 18 million health, 800 million skill. Divine Charge. Charges forward at an astonishing speed for a certain distance, destroying any enemy naval unit in its path, with collision damage equal to 80 of its own power value, causing the struck target to enter a state of confusion and reducing their attack power by 50 for 15 seconds, with a 50 chance to stun the target for 5 seconds. Skill: World-Destroying Cannon Fire. Increases main cannon hit rate to 100 and drastically enhances shooting accuracy. Lasts for 60 seconds, during which main cannon damage is increased by 120, with a 50 chance to trigger triple damage effect for each attack. And every 3 attacks will definitely cause an area explosion, dealing damage equal to 30 of own power value to surrounding enemy units. Skill: Ultra Nanotech Miracle Repair. Available in certain versions or after upgrades. The shipboard nano repair robot system can repair mechanical units at 3 times the speed of the Imperial dock within a radius of 500. While using this skill, firing cannot occur. Each use lasts for 40 seconds with a cooldown of 40 seconds, repairing at a rate of 3 of own health value per second, while also providing a repair effect of 1 of own health value per second to surrounding friendly units. Skill: Celestial Firepower Suppression. Temporarily increases main cannon firing rate and damage. Lasts for 40 seconds. Firing rate increases by 120, damage increases by 180, creating a strong deterrent effect on surrounding enemy units, reducing their movement speed by 70 and attack power by 40, while also granting oneself a shield that can absorb damage equal to 50 of own health value, lasting until the skill ends. Wow, this is on a world-destroying level. Over 10 million in power. This is unbelievable. Currently, no troops under Su Bai have such high attributes. Chapter 291. The Allied carrier became a ghost ship. The ocean turned into a sea of toxins. No wonder 3 shots could severely damage an ocean overlord. After the upgrade, it's terrifying. In the main god space, radiant light shines softly and soothingly. The demon lord's decline is evident. The human race has no taboos. The demon team leader Su Bai possesses such power. The light of the main god slowly condenses into an elderly figure with an ethereal presence, with flowing white hair and beard, dressed in a white robe, a jade belt around the waist, and holding a feather fan. The celestial aura is ethereal, as if a deity has descended. If this battle is won, the battlefield of all realms can also rest. This person is Chang Xian, a strategist left behind after the Yin and Huang opened the battlefield of all realms to guide future generations. Legend has it that he was a minister of the Yellow Emperor, making outstanding contributions in invention and creation. He invented military instruments such as war drums, significantly enhancing the combat effectiveness of the Yellow Emperor's tribe. Although Changxian is not a traditional strategist, his inventions provided strong support for the military operations of the Yellow Emperor's tribe. The main god sanctuary, as well as the battlefield of all realms for exchanging points for heroic spirits and buildings, were all created by him. Therefore, the Yin and Huang emperors entrusted the management of the battlefield of all realms to him. Even after the deaths of Yin and Huang, humanity remained as steady as Mount Tai. History has proven that the Yin and Huang emperors had keen insight, and Changxian did not fail in his mission. For thousands of years, few demons have entered the human world. However, despite this, many demons have entered the human world, causing numerous instances. The situation was unbearable for humanity. Soon, he furrowed his brows again. Even if the flames consumed the mouse and the cow, and the tiger found no hiding place in the muddy den, how could it be that with the current fierce offensive from Su Bai, there were still changes? Whether it was good or bad, I found it hard to determine. A huge unknown loomed over Changxian, and even if he could decipher the secrets of the universe, he could not see through this layer of fog. As the clouds dispersed, Changxian lightly tapped his feather fan and laughed heartily to the sky. Ha ha, Changxian, when did you become so cautious? Have you forgotten the days when you hunted alongside the Emperor of Yin and Huang? The outcome of the hunt was still uncertain. The naval battle continued with thunderous roars. Amidst the turbulent waters, the Navy's battleships had already wreaked havoc, creating a blood-soaked sea where countless remnants floated. Blood rained down continuously on the ground. Despite having strong ships and powerful artillery, the sheer number of enemies posed a significant threat, and there were casualties in the ongoing battles. Just the protective battle group for the heavy ships, dolphins, submarines, squids, and destroyers, had suffered damage to 500 vessels. One can only imagine the enemy's losses. At this moment, the aircraft carrier on the left underwent tremendous changes due to the upgrade of the dark magic core. Its hull was covered in mysterious magical metal, and a dark green glow flickered like ghostly fire, making the entire ship resemble a decrepit ghost ship. The Allied soldiers in charge of commanding the aircraft carrier had also undergone drastic transformations, their skin rotting away to reveal only eerie white bones. Yet they continued to command the carrier's operations. Su Bai was secretly astonished. Wow, I'm glad I didn't board that ship. The ghost ship carrier is terrifying. Suddenly, Sky Knight's drones flew out from the hangar, attacking the enemies on the sea surface. These drones had also undergone significant changes, with streamlined metallic bodies and skeletal enhancements at the edges, increasing their speed and defensive capabilities, turning them into eternal slaves on the ghost ship. As bombs were dropped, a thunderous explosion erupted, sending towering waves across the sea. Intense flames shot up into the sky, followed by clouds of green toxic mist. This mist spread rapidly through the water, carrying a long-lasting lethal virus. Monsters lurking in the depths of the water were contaminated by the toxic fog, writhing in agony. As the virus spread, the monsters transformed into pools of green water, further extending the reach of the virus. Most remarkably, it seemed that these viruses recognized their hosts. The dolphins and squids resisting in the front lines were unaffected by the virus. Instead, the viruses seemed to attach themselves to the dolphins and squids. The bodies of these two creatures began to mutate. A certain ancestral gene was activated. The dolphins immediately grew longer and larger, their teeth becoming sharper, effortlessly taking out several enemies as they swam. Meanwhile, the squid's tentacles also elongated. A surge of black ink was expelled, and in an instant, 5 or 6 tentacles reached out, strangling several sea monsters. The temporary base established by the ground forces had expanded to a radius of 50 kilometers. The team members looked up, each holding an umbrella, as the blood rain had been falling for 2 hours. Athena couldn't help but ask why the battle in the sky was still ongoing. With Su Bai being strong and capable, and personally overseeing the battle in the sky, it shouldn't be like this, the other team members agreed, worried that something had happened to Su Bai up there. Although they were well experienced, it was their first time witnessing such a spectacle, and anxiety crept into their hearts. The underground area they had uncovered was already larger than the total area of the previous underground space. They had dispatched over 50 scout teams to explore the terrain, but still hadn't found any boundaries. Ing Kong anxiously asked Zhanlan what was going on in the sky. Let me sense it, Zhanlan said, gently touching her chest, and using her probing power to search for information about the sky ocean. In an instant, horrifying images invaded her mind. Death, green bodily fluids, severed limbs of creatures, and enormous monsters feasting on rotten flesh. The red blood was mixed with green, making Zhanlan feel a wave of nausea. She managed to suppress it and continued to use her mental sensing to look further up. As she continued to search, more and more corpses piled up and fell down, obstructing her vision. Unable to hold it back, she vomited. Ing Kong hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" "It's too disgusting." "What do you mean?" Zhanlan replied, The flesh and blood have turned into pus and blood, green and rotten. The salty smell of the ocean is mixed with a putrid stench, continuously attacking my heart. The more I try to discern what is happening up there, the more layers of corpses cover my eyes, making it impossible to see the situation above the sea. Hearing this, the other team leaders felt a tightening in their hearts. They were most afraid of any unknown situations arising, especially if Subai was caught in a tough battle. That would be the worst news for them. Chapter 292. The upgraded Invincible-class warship completed. Black light burst forth, instantly slaying the great white shark demon at that moment. Fierce sounds of battle erupted in the valley ahead. Glaciers rose from the ground, and towering ice giants over 50 meters tall swept across with laser beams, causing over 30 flying lizard launch tanks to explode in an instant. Suddenly, a blast of cold air rushed in, forming towering icebergs that instantly suppressed a reinforcing troop. With a deafening roar, the icebergs drifted and broke through the makeshift defensive wall. The heavy cavalry line was breached. As the icebergs melted, hundreds of ancient snowmen leaped out, engaging in hand-to-hand combat with the savage beastmen. The enemies had breached our defenses. This is bad. Organize a defense. In the chaos, all the captains summoned their soldiers and began to defend. Among them, Li Kaidang had just assembled her 20,000 strong army, but in an instant, over 8,000 were crushed by an incoming iceberg, suffering heavy casualties. Athena shouted, "These monsters from the icebergs are endless. We must send troops to eliminate that source in the distance." The Ice River Demon. However, saying this was almost pointless. Anyone who could enter the battlefield of 10,000 worlds was a capable fighter. It was clear to everyone what the problem was. Who could send troops over, and after getting there, who could defeat the Ice River Demon? The crucial point was that no one had that capability. At that moment, an even worse situation unfolded. The Ocean Overlord, the great white shark demon, descended from the sky, seemingly ready to obliterate Subai's last remaining forces. As everyone gazed at the descending great white shark demon, a tide of despair washed over them. Its massive body blocked out the sun, creating an oppressive atmosphere that made it hard for everyone to breathe. How could we possibly win against this? We're finished. As the great white shark demon got closer to the ground, everyone noticed that it didn't seem to be heading towards the battlefield base. Instead, it appeared to be merging with the Ice River Demon. One thing surprised all the squad members. A missile, about half the size of the great white shark demon, was lodged in its right side. A blue flame erupted from the missile, seemingly pushing it down towards the ground. What was happening? Before they could figure it out, the great white shark demon was propelled by the missile, crashing through two icebergs and landing heavily on the massive Ice River Demon. Both fell simultaneously. At the same time, a black flash shot up into the sky. The missile exploded, creating a shockwave that reached the bottom of the sky sea. The connection between heaven and earth was extraordinarily spectacular. Then, after a brief pause, a rain of blood began to fall again, a thick, bloody scent returning. Everyone looked at each other, mouths agape, not understanding what had just happened as blood dripped into their mouths. As the smoke cleared, the great white shark demon lay torn apart, while the Ice River Demon beneath it was still alive. It shook its head and struggled to stand up. Though it seemed unsteady on its feet, it was simply impossible to fight back. He staggered and seemed ready to flee. An ice shield emerged behind him, resembling a gigantic turtle shell. Ing Kong shouted, "This guy is going to run. Everyone focus your fire." Although the others were unaware of what had transpired, the situation had stabilized for the moment. Thus, everyone drew their ranged units, launching various dazzling spells at the back of the ice giant. However, the turtle shell defense was incredibly strong. The attacks landed with a clatter, but to no avail. In fact, the ice giant only sneered in response, countering with an ice mountain that instantly shattered the gathered ranged firepower. It was too tough. Nothing could penetrate it. Just as Athena finished speaking, a missile fell from the sky, landing squarely behind the ice giant. Boom! Another burst of dark energy shot up. This time, the ice giant curled its limbs and lay flat on the ground like a turtle, showcasing the full strength of its ice shield. Yet even so, cracks began to appear on the shell, spreading rapidly. It seemed that the ice shield could not withstand the might of the missile from above. The ice giant gathered all its energy to continue repairing its shell. This creature truly understood the art of retreat. In that case, let's give it a couple more. The dreadnought continued to fire. Above the sky and sea, the modified dreadnought-class cruiser flashed red light. Two enhanced missiles pierced through the ocean, racing toward the ground with two beams of dark energy. The ice giant's tough shell could no longer endure the damage from the sky. 74 million. 82 million. Damage numbers popped up simultaneously. With a crack, the shell shattered, and the giant vanished into nothingness amidst the dark energy. This wave of enemy attacks was repelled. The team members slumped to the ground once again, having survived against all odds. They successfully passed through the ordeal. The rain of blood fell for a while before stopping, and the sea and the sky became clear, seemingly washing away the corpses from the earlier battle. A few team members skilled in mental detection began to scan the area for any remaining enemies. One of them pierced through the azure sky and sea, spotting a colossal Navy warship drifting on the horizon. How could this be? So powerful. Subai stood tall at the bow of the shogunate cruiser, gazing into the distance over the sea, exuding the aura of a conqueror. Subai had won, with an overwhelming victory. He had supported the ground battle. How terrifying this was. Subai let out a sigh of relief. Today, the enemy would likely not dare to venture into battle again. After some contemplation, after this battle, the losses on our side were not small. The infantry units lost 253 personnel, the armored units lost 754 vehicles. The surface naval units lost 512 ships, and various aircraft supporting the air units lost 215 planes. Compared to the million-strong army of the opposing side, this loss is actually not significant. However, the million troops stationed under the Great Wall of Myriad Realms are not something to be taken lightly. If they were to launch a desperate one-for-one exchange, even if we fought valiantly, we would still lose if they managed to steal the crystal. So, the losses this time are considerable. Fortunately, our infantry units will respawn after death, and those reverse warriors can also replenish the lost units. If it weren't for our previous victory over the reverse Demon King, the losses would likely have been even greater. Once our forces are depleted to half, we would have to mobilize 1 million troops, and that would be a difficult situation. We would be worried about both holding the Great Wall and breaking through the enemy stronghold. The most important thing is that we now have the method to produce the magic core, which can turn the tide against numerical disadvantages. Having defeated the giant tooth shark demon and the glacier demon, we've gained 2 types of attribute boosts, one increasing strength by 2 million, and the other increasing agility by 2 million. Chapter 293. Wanna run? I'll kill whoever runs fastest. On the ground battlefield, many powerful beings who rushed over saw the glacier demon with absolute defense, the ice turtle shell, get blasted to death by 3 cannon shots. They immediately lowered their flags and began to retreat. With a cold snort, Subai said, "Run? Do you think you can escape?" He raised his hand and then brought it down heavily. The dreadnought battleship fired 2 more missiles. The missiles broke the sound barrier in an instant, and the friction with the air caused their surfaces to glow red hot, like 2 red lasers diving beneath the sea and fleeing far away. Soon, 2 more missiles were ready to launch. Boom. Today, none of you will get to go back. Boom. As the various powerful beings retreated, they looked back at the incoming missiles and desperately tried to escape. They understood a simple truth. In the forest, if 2 friends encounter a tiger, and one stops to tie his shoelaces, the other asks, "Will tying your shoelaces make you faster than the tiger?" As long as you can outrun the other person, that's all that matters. A dead ally doesn't matter as long as I survive. The enemy's attacks have a time gap. As long as you hit someone slower than you, you can take advantage of that gap to escape the enemy's attack range and survive. However, ideals are often grand, while reality is harsh. 2 missiles flew past the head of the last powerful being in retreat. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat and touched his body. Fortunately, he was still unharmed. However, the fastest shadow runner, the shadow demon, was hit by a missile. 2 enormous beams of black light shot up like towering trees, instantly blocking the way for the higher beings. Amidst the rolling shockwaves, the shadow demon was already blown to pieces, losing all vitality. Following that, the second fastest, the rage horse demon, was also struck by Subai's red arrow missile. Again, 2 beams of black light resulted in immediate death. Damn, Subai really doesn't want any of us to survive. He directly took out the fastest one. That's just too ruthless. Some higher beings were so frightened that they stopped in their tracks and cried out, "Subai, you are truly merciless. Everyone stop. Let's summon all our troops to form a meat shield and retreat in an orderly manner." Seeing this scene, the fastest higher being was the first to halt. There was no way around it. Whether they ran fast or slow, death awaited them. Since they were going to die anyway, they might as well fight back against Subai, as he showed no intention of letting any higher being escape. Soon after, dozens of higher beings concentrated their energy. With a loud roar, over 2 million flying units formed a massive meat shield, resembling an intricate web, blocking the way ahead for the higher beings. They pushed the flying units upward, so while they couldn't enter the sky ocean, they could intercept Subai's attacks in time. These 2 million flying units positioned themselves right beneath the sky ocean. As soon as another missile was fired, they would collectively destroy it to protect the lives of the higher beings below. Boom. A missile exploded, instantly killing tens of thousands of flying units. This layered meat shield indeed played its role, successfully intercepting Subai's missiles with their bodies. One after another, the charred corpses that had been obliterated by the explosions fell from the sky. Members of the 10,000 Realms battlefield team couldn't help but comment on the scene. Damn. First, it rained blood from above, and now it's raining charred bodies. How terrifying. However, this interception did not go as planned. Less than 3 minutes later, besides missiles, another wave of attacks emerged. That was from the battleship where Su-bai was located. The massive cannon turned and fired at the surface of the sea. Huge splashes erupted on the water's surface. Although the sky ocean provided some obstruction, the inertia of the shells still penetrated the entire ocean, exploding among the enemy's air units. Both ships attacked simultaneously. Continuous explosions occurred beneath the seabed, instantly killing over 1 million flying units that were close to the surface. What shocked these higher beings even more was, under this continuous penetration, the sky and sea relentlessly poured into the ground. Countless seawater, carrying an immense number of corpses, gushed violently into the perforated sea caves. This kind of fear was palpable. "Run!" someone shouted. The higher-ups could no longer focus on commanding their troops and hurriedly retreated in panic. There was no other choice. With less than 1 million aerial units left, they could only delay for a few breaths. So what should be done next? Seeing this situation, Su-bai sneered twice. "Don't think that by blocking the ocean with 2 million meat shields, you can escape." With a wave of his hand, another team lurking in the ocean emerged from the seabed, rushing towards them. It was the submarine named after the famous actress, Hai Tianyi, the Hai submarine. Although this unit consisted of only over 100, its speed and agility made it the best choice for coordinating missile strikes against these severely weakened higher-ups. Missiles blocked their path as the over 100 Hai submarines swooped overhead, unleashing a torrent of bullets from their rotating energy cannons. These tiny bullets struck the higher-ups like steel needles, piercing their skin. While they might not be instantly fatal, the bombardment caused their outer skin to shed, exposing their muscles. The pain from these bullets was not just skin-deep, it was a deep, aching pain. Moreover, the backline's fan-wind aircraft also joined the fray. The kamikaze pterodactyl and the vulture attack aircraft entered this hunting frenzy. Many higher-ups, their health depleted, clutched the ankles of their peers in a desperate hope to have company on the road to the afterlife. This dragging behavior caused several higher-ups with more health to endure additional rounds of attacks. The coordination of missiles and aircraft resembled a shadowy reaper in the sky, continuously swinging its scythe of death, harvesting these poor higher-ups who had never truly faced Su-bai. In less than 10 minutes, over 30 higher-ups and 2 million aerial units perished. The higher-ups defending among the golden skeletons were struck with fear upon witnessing such a scene. They no longer had the intention to launch any attacks. So many strong individuals, so many troops, yet they could not shake Su-bai, especially with the last wave, over 30 of them, dying without knowing why, purely being tortured. The sight of those red missiles descending from the sky was a nightmare for every higher-up. A single hit can take away nearly 13 points of health. Who can withstand 3 shots? It's terrifying, truly terrifying. Chapter 294. The captain of the lunar team infiltrates the Demon Palace's 18th level, preparing to unify the realms and eliminate Su-bai, even with thousands of troops. Which high-ranking individual hasn't fought their way out amidst blood and chaos to achieve their current status? To die easily and without understanding it's Su-bai's hands. Who would be willing to accept that? Su-bai? We absolutely cannot provoke him. But the command from the Demon Lord cannot be ignored. In the Golden Skeleton Cave, millions of troops are spread across the ground. Sending troops without generals is just slow work. Once, 18 small teams, each with 1,000 soldiers, launched a dispersed attack. Their main focus was on ambushes, giving clear signals. On Su-bai's side, the team members saw that the enemy's morale had collapsed and decided to pursue, even if it meant chasing them for 3 to 5 dozen miles. Driving the enemy back 10 miles was a must. Unfortunately, the path was treacherous. The once narrow mountain trails were now blocked by the bodies of a 2 million-strong aerial army. Everywhere lay charred flesh and severed limbs, making movement extremely difficult. After pursuing for 10 miles, the enemy had long since fled, leaving no trace. Only small groups of enemies wandered in the woods, creating endless annoyance with their distractions. In the 18th level of the Demon Palace, the Flame Demon King returned, seeking judgment from the Demon Lord. The Flame Demon King, possessed by Lung Hanyue, knelt on the ground, bound and unable to move. Fearful of battle, he was directly executed without hesitation. The Demon Lord, not wasting words, ordered the main entrance of the Demon Palace to be opened. If Su-bai was willing to withdraw his troops, that would be best. Everyone could live in peace. This completely exceeded Lung Hanyue's expectations. Damn it, have these beings from various realms gone mad? At least the Flame Demon King has returned, giving you an additional fighting force. Now, at this critical juncture, you still want to kill? Can't you be a bit lenient? No, I refuse. Demon Lord, I refuse. Even if you kill me, I won't accept it. A coward who has fled, what do you refuse? The previous collapse was due to Su-bai's scheme. If I'm to die, I'd rather don my armor again and fight Su-bai to the death. The Flame Demon King's words were powerful. Behind him, Lung Hanyue was already sweating profusely. Taking such a risk might lead to a quicker death. However, he was right. The demon lord snorted coldly. You still no shame, fine. I'll give you an additional 5 million troops, and with this, go confront Subai. If you don't win, then you'll die. In his left hand, a ghostly light flickered in the demon lord's palm. Suddenly, the air within the entire demon palace became dry. Then it became damp and decayed. Shortly after, sandification occurred, leaving people puzzled. However, all these unusual phenomena drifted toward the palm of the Dark Lord, where 5 fingers ignited 5 small fireballs of different colors. The fingers intertwined and then opened, instantly drawing a pentagram in the air. The Dark Lord then reached into the path of the pentagram. With a casual motion, he extracted a black spiral object from within it. It was a young black hole. It had already consumed several stars, and he bestowed it upon you. Your troops would also gain the power of consumption. Lung Hanyue looked at this treasure, continuously bowing in gratitude. He thought to himself, I didn't expect you to be so generous, Dark Lord. Then I won't occupy your body just yet. After I eliminate Su Bai and gain a great victory, I'll approach you and take over. He was feeling happy and excited. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a familiar figure in the dark palace. The person was strong and had short hair, looking quite capable. However, beside him, a seductive figure kept entwining around him, making his resolute expression appear lewd. Lung Hanyue was stunned for half a second. Wasn't this Zhengye? He actually betrayed humanity? Joined the Dark Lord? What the heck? This was utterly unexpected. He never thought this upright-looking guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes would also betray them. Thinking of this, Lung Hanyue felt a bit uncomfortable, as if he had swallowed a fly. Perhaps the Dark Lord had just given him a treasure, making him feel like a savior, after all. A deity capable of ruling all beings. But now, Zhengye's status was clearly much higher than his, especially with that seductive figure beside him. That entangling technique was something even a monk would have to admire. Shaking off his unhappiness, he accepted the treasure, bowed a few more times, and then left the Dark Palace. He arrived before the 5 million troops that had been arranged for him, which left him disappointed again. These 5 million troops were low-level and weak, some even inferior to the ones he had nurtured himself. Lung Hanyue was unaware that during the time he was being escorted back, elite forces had already reached the battlefield on the 17th level. However, at least he still had the power of the black hole bestowed by the Dark Lord. Black hole power. Rating, cosmic level. Usage count, 50,000 50,000. Description, this black hole power is mysterious and powerful. When used in attack, it can generate a strong gravitational pull, making it difficult for enemies to escape, as if being drawn into the abyss of destruction by an invisible force. Its power not only possesses a strong attraction, but also has a terrifying tearing effect, capable of inflicting a high damage of 5 million with each tear, easily shredding the enemy's defenses. For every 10 attacks, it can devour one attribute of the enemy, continuously weakening them while enhancing itself, making it a terrifying force on the battlefield that strikes fear into the hearts of foes. The consumption limit is 150. This thing, with a tearing effect of 5 million, is already overpowered, and on top of that, it can devour one attribute of the enemy after 10 attacks. It's indeed impressive. Unfortunately, the usage limit is only 50,000. Once used up, it's gone. Thinking of this, he cursed the Dark Lord again for being so cunning. Setting a usage limit means that even if he defeats his opponent, his forces will be mostly depleted, leaving him unable to pose a threat. Thus, he attempted to use it 3 times, targeting the 3 strongest units among the 50,000 powerful troops. Next, he ordered these 3 strong units to attack the weak and sickly soldiers, aiming to enhance his strength before officially engaging with his opponent. However, after just 3 strikes, he regretted it. These were already weak and sickly. Devouring one of their attributes didn't yield much of an increase. He gasped in realization that he still needed to find an opportunity to clash head-on with his opponent's units to steal their attributes. Damn it. Meanwhile, on the 17th floor of the battlefield, with a loud explosion, a golden skeletal floating island in the sky instantly shattered. Tens of thousands of troops fell from the sky and became a mushy mass on the ground. Watching all this, he silently counted in his heart. That was the 19th one. He hadn't expected these floating golden skeletal islands to be so tough. After firing 30 or 40 missiles, he had only managed to destroy one. No wonder these higher-ups had hidden inside. They were indeed very hard. Chapter 295, Super Lightning Storm. Continuing to bombard the floating golden skeletal islands with the Invincible-class cruiser, he felt relieved. He had instantly killed over 30 higher-ups. He hadn't even had time to check the spoils yet. A rough glance showed that the attribute increase, excluding skills, was astonishingly over 10 million. This number came too easily. You have to understand that when he first entered the battlefield, it took a long time to take down a higher-up from the insect race. Now, killing these stronger higher-ups from the Demon Palace felt like slaughtering chickens, effortless. It was indeed the stronghold of the Dark Lord in the multiverse battlefield. These monsters were rapidly boosting his power. Besides attribute point bonuses, there were also quite a few random skills. Among them are several pieces of equipment. Subai almost dazzled by the sight. All these rewards are just the tip of the iceberg in this vast 17-layer underground palace. There are countless terrains yet to be explored. It's easy to imagine that fully conquering the 17-layer underground palace would significantly enhance one's strength. Unexpectedly, having fallen into the enemy's trap before turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It feels like being pushed off a cliff and landing in a paradise. Thinking of this, Subai realized he had been somewhat naive before. Those races that surrendered and brought him to the Demon Palace. He had actually refused them at the time. It was rather foolish and innocent. With a million-strong army and the unification of countless races, the Demon King must prepare for battle. In the 18th layer of the Demon Palace, another general fighting alongside him is the Headless Sovereign. Facing his own troops, a million Headless Whirlwinds. These whirlwinds are the soldiers of the Headless Sovereign. Wind elements. They can be immune to most magical and physical damage. Those who wield wind can kill invisibly. Distorted human faces emerge within the whirlwinds, almost imperceptible, headless. Such a powerful troop type makes the cold-hearted Moon, manipulating the Demon King, feel a strong desire to take control of the Headless Sovereign immediately to enhance his own strength. However, in the 18th layer of the Demon Palace, there are demonic eyes everywhere. If he were to act recklessly, he would surely expose himself, making escape impossible. Suppressing his greed, he commanded, "Let us move troops to the 17th layer. Eliminate Subai." On the floating skeleton island of the 17th layer, various strongholds of the higher beings desperately drifted backward, fearing being hit by Subai's invincible cruiser. Not long ago, these strongholds had their gaping mouths wide open, with countless soldiers pouring out, creating a spectacular scene across the mountains. But now, the situation has reversed dramatically. The powerful war fortresses floating in the air have become obvious targets for Subai. The Golden Skeleton Island moves slowly. Even so, not a single higher being dared to step out from the island. After all, the stronghold could hold out for quite some time. Although moving quickly, stepping out physically would be a death sentence if hit by Subai's missiles. Boom. A flash of red light. A missile struck the forehead of the Golden Skeleton directly. Black light shot up to the sky. In an instant, another Golden Skeleton floating island shattered and collapsed into the ground. Reinforcements. When will the reinforcements arrive? Has the Demon Lord abandoned us? We are doomed. According to the brothers at the front, the area transitioning from the 17th to the 18th level is now sealed off by a barrier, making retreat impossible. Upon hearing this news, all the higher-ups looked ashen. Have they truly become pawns? The Demon Lord is ruthless. On the battlefield, whether it's fear of battle or fleeing, he executes them all without exception. It's over. Now there's only a dead end left. Suddenly, one of the higher-ups spoke up. I heard from the 18th level that the Flame Demon King was captured but did not die. What does that mean? The Demon Lord didn't kill him. Instead, he was given the title of commander and awarded the Demon Lord's artifact, along with an additional 5 million troops. No way. Is that true? I saw it with my own eyes. Not a word of it is false. Why is it that for us higher-ups, our fates are so different? This guy escapes and instead gets promoted and rewarded, while we who returned are met with sealed doors. It's so unfair. One of the higher-ups expressed dissatisfaction. How about this? Let us all surrender. Let us see if Subai might spare us. As soon as this higher-up finished speaking, he and the Golden Skeleton were instantly shattered into pieces. Blood and flesh fell alongside the gold. Who said to surrender? Die? At the final stronghold of the 17th level, the Headless Elder stood suspended in the air, watching the Golden Skeletons retreating towards him. He killed one person who was causing chaos in the ranks to set an example. The remaining higher-ups were filled with dread. The Demon Lord had even sent his trusted aide, the Headless Elder. Beside the Headless Elder, the Flame Demon Lord lashed out with a fiery whip, striking the skeleton closest to the stronghold. Anyone who dares to speak of retreat will die too. A chilling silence fell, their spines tingling. Fortunately, they hadn't spoken of surrender earlier. Otherwise, they would be the second to die. At Subai's temporary headquarters on the 17th level, the Sky-Sea battle had long since concluded. The Navy was sweeping through the skies, unstoppable. Subai returned to the ground aboard a Nightingale helicopter. The remaining tasks were to continue research and deploy troops further. There shouldn't be any significant battles left. Once the 17th level was fully explored, they could launch an attack on the 18th level. The current focus was on continuing to produce the Magic Core and loading it onto units. The Magic Core has a distinctive feature. It is large, multifunctional infantry vehicles, iron cavalry, cyclopean armored giants, some small tanks, light units, and aircraft cannot accommodate it. The Apocalypse tank can barely fit it. Given that installing the magic core boosts overall combat effectiveness by 5 to 10 times, Subai decided to convene another discussion meeting for the engineers. That is to say, to install the magical core onto the super weapon. At the meeting, engineers from various factions expressed their opinions, all requesting to install the magical core on their own faction's super weapon. Regarding the attempt to install it, Subai decided not to take risks initially and opted to install one first. After some discussion, it was decided to try installing the magical core on the Lightning Storm super weapon. This was because the two elements were more compatible. The Lightning Storm was a weather weapon that unleashed fierce thunderstorm attacks on enemy regions, which aligned well with the magic of the magical core. There might be unexpected effects when the two were combined. After several rounds of trials, the Allied engineers managed to install the magical core at the poles of the positive and negative magnetic towers of the Lightning Storm. This installation consumed 12 magical cores for Subai. Now, the Lightning Storm was ready, but its power remained uncertain. On the other side, at the factory of the Wind Chariot, new battle vehicles had also rolled off the assembly line, which were the illusory light multi-barrel rocket launchers. This was another type of long-range strike weapon, capable of both aerial and ground attacks, appearing to have significant range and strength. Subai placed them in critical positions to maximize their utility. Just when the 40th unit was produced, the system sent a notification. Congratulations. The host has offline 1 million armored units. Achievement unlocked. Million steel lions. Lottery can be opened. Yes or no? Subai gasped. Finally, it had come. He had been waiting for a long time. He remembered that when his funds reached over 100 million, the system still hadn't prompted any lottery events, leading him to believe that such good fortune had already ended. He didn't expect it to return now. At the same time, he realized that he had unknowingly amassed so many troops, 1 million armored tanks. Thinking about the current battle, he felt that a million-strong army was still somewhat inadequate. After all, the Great Wall of the 10,000 Realms was his Achilles heel. If he had an army of 10 million, he could split them into two groups, and both sides could be at ease. With this in mind, Subai decisively chose yes. In the Stone Sea, a new box rose in the center. However, the previous boxes were wooden, while this one was golden, seemingly capable of yielding better rewards. He controlled an allied mining vehicle and crashed into it, causing his palms to sweat continuously. At the moment the ox cart crushed the golden box, a line of text rose up. Congratulations, the host has obtained a reinforcement multiplier x5. Note, after acquiring this reinforcement, when producing various units, the overall strength of the units can be doubled, with a maximum increase of 5 times. Each doubling requires spending 10 times the original amount, and reinforcing to 5 times consumes 50 times the normal amount. Subai's eyelids twitched. Left eye signifies wealth, right eye signifies disaster. What the heck? Is this for real? A reinforcement multiplier. This means, for example, if producing an infantryman costs 100 units of currency, now there's an additional option in the production section for reinforcement multiplier. If the multiplier is set to 2, the cost for the infantryman rises to 1,000. If the reinforcement is increased to 5 times, the cost skyrockets to 5,000 units of currency. That's a 50-fold increase. However, while the price has surged considerably, the 5-fold increase in strength allows the various low-tier units, which were on the brink of obsolescence, to regain their vitality. Moreover, Subai's account isn't short on funds, with nearly 300 million in resources. Spending a bit more to bolster the weaker forces isn't a bad idea. The only issue is that plundering money and acquiring resources like oil has become a stumbling block on Subai's path to becoming stronger. After weighing the pros and cons, Subai decided to switch all his troops to the 5-fold mode. As long as they could take down the enemy, what is a bit more expenditure? Especially since he has Athena, a reliable source of funds, continuously providing gold warriors to exchange for money at the recovery station. Subai summoned a newspaper-skinned Grey Bear tank from his consciousness. Grey Bear tank, 5-fold reinforcement, grade, mechanical overlord, power, 23 million, agility, 11 million, defense, 16 million health, 42 million. Wow, just looking at the attributes. Even an ordinary tank's stats exceed 10 million. No wonder it has gained an additional grade. If this tank were placed on the blue planet, it would indeed be considered a mechanical overlord. Here, while a single tank with 5-fold enhanced attributes can't sweep through thousands of troops, it's important to note that this is just a basic unit. There are still many advanced light units that cannot accommodate the magical core. Now, these units can once again shine in their second spring. Subai exhaled a breath of turbid air. Just focus on producing troops. No need to overthink it or worry about unnecessary matters. Everyone, return and set up the defenses. Each of you must exhaust your energy to unleash more troops. Do it without reservation. Crack, crack. The fiery whip lashed down on the higher-ups. The scars left by the flames continued to burn. I can't take it anymore. I'm about to faint from the headache. A towering beast with white spikes collapsed to the ground, groaning in agony. It was being whipped by the Flame Demon King. Lung Hanyue, don't think you can escape these lashes by playing dead. Crack, crack. With more cries of pain, the white-haired creature lay motionless, its chest no longer rising and falling. Instantly, the other summoned soldiers' superiors trembled with anger at the sight. Could this White Knight beast really be dead? It's hard to say. After those lashes, anyone would struggle to survive. I see that the White Knight beast has no breath left. It seems its chances are slim. Damn. The White Knight beast is even foaming at the mouth. It really is dead. The Flame Demon King is ruthless enough. And Zhang has the holy order of the Demon Lord running rampant here. It's too cruel. It's truly inhumane. The Flame Demon King swung the fiery whip fiercely against the ground. 5 fiery fissures separated these superiors. You all stop wasting my time. Someone, drag this White Knight beast away and give it another beating. How dare it play dead in front of me? Lung Hanyue chuckled coldly. This White Knight beast was indeed killed by him. He had reaped all the experience and rewards. After all, he was the captain of the Moon Surface team. How satisfying. This was already the 5th superior that Lung Hanyue had purposely tormented to death. For each kill, he gained numerous benefits. You could say he was quite the veteran in the demon army. However, he also dared not go too far. The masses can easily turn against him. It's not a mistake to point out flaws. It could provoke collective anger. What if these superiors rebelled? Wouldn't he be left with nothing? So, despite the presence of hundreds of superiors here, Lung Hanyue had only taken down a handful. He didn't dare to be too blatant. The Headless Lord floated over, forcibly pushing their energy. What about the countless armies summoned? Lung Hanyue quickly bowed and nodded. I'm ready. I've pushed all the superiors to their limits. The number of armies is sufficient. We can attack Su Bai at any time. The Headless Lord lowered its neck in acknowledgement. Very good. Quickly have them form ranks. Master. To this day, I still don't know what these small Karamis are supposed to do. These guys are just cannon fodder on the battlefield. What value do they hold? The Headless Lord touched its non-existent head and said, You don't understand, do you? These superiors are all bait. I will naturally have a clever plan when the time comes. Chapter 297, A Trap? We're just sending heads. On Su Bai's side, the Fearless class cruiser, the aircraft carrier, and the Shogun battleship were pursuing the enemy, killing all the way. Wherever they went, be it high mountains, snowy fields, or forests, everything seemed flat. Flames burned fiercely, resembling a hellish inferno. Enemies were slain without counting the numbers, until a gigantic waterfall appeared ahead. The sky and ocean reached their limits. Beyond that, the waterfall cascaded down. The waterfall, 3,000 feet high, seemed like the Milky Way falling from the heavens. This massive drop prevented the naval forces from advancing any further. The chase came to a halt as Su Bai observed the scene through the radar. He let out a long breath. It seemed they could only rely on ground troops to sweep forward. With a rumble, dozens of tall mountains rose from the ground. The mountain peaks erupted as if they were acne on the skin. Dark figures surged forth like a tidal wave. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be countless enemies. These foes were hiding underground to launch a sneak attack? Su Bai smiled. The enemies in the sky had been eliminated, and those at sea were also dealt with. Now the underground enemies were finally showing themselves. He wondered which bold general had the audacity to set an ambush. Meanwhile, the units sweeping ahead of Su Bai were affected by an earthquake. The ground sank, and they found themselves in a deep pit. Countless enemies pouring out from the mountain peaks quickly surged toward the sunken area. Various spells were unleashed, and close combat charges ensued, with cries of battle drowning out the sounds of artillery from Su Bai's troops in the pit. Su Bai frowned, shaking his head at the sight. Such a weak force dared to confront his advanced troops head-on. It was utterly foolish. If Su Bai were in command, to eliminate his own 3,000 advanced troops, he would need at least 30 million long-range units to concentrate fire. Currently, the tide of enemies seemed to number no more than 10 million, with an estimated scale of around 5 million. Relying on such a small force, coupled with the terrain advantage, to annihilate his troops? Was that not a daydream? With a wave of his hand, Su Bai ordered, advanced troops, vanguards, charge and break out. This would teach the enemies what it meant to have the center blossom. Boom. The artillery rained down, concentrating fire on a single point within the encirclement. Instantly, thousands of shells fell. Other units huddled together like a hedgehog, attacking while consolidating their positions to block the tide of enemies from all directions. Rumbling echoed as the edges of the pit shattered under concentrated fire. The potential energy quickly grew like a rolling snowball, forming a wave of debris. This surge of debris instantly overwhelmed all enemies in the path, creating a steep slope at a 45-degree angle. Su Bai smiled again. He had thought they would only be able to launch wave after wave of countercharges from the pit. To my surprise, the firepower on our side is overwhelming, directly blasting out a slope. Now the entire army, charge out of the pit and eliminate all enemies. Soon, After suffering hundreds of casualties, the main forces surged out of the depression as if a sword was thrusting outward, continuously widening the breach. Seeing this, the enemies began to retreat. Want to run? Pursue them. The ground trembled again. A crack stretching over 100 kilometers appeared, and millions of enemies surged out. These enemies used the ever-changing and peculiar terrain as a shield, fighting while retreating. Even if breaching just 1 kilometer forward would cost thousands of our allies, they showed no signs of panic. Meanwhile, the master of this variable terrain, the Earth Demon, felt increasingly drained. The moisture was constantly seeping out of its earthen body, even showing signs of desertification. Controlling such a vast terrain, I am utterly exhausted. Crack! A fiery whip struck the Earth Demon on the crown. Don't slack off. Otherwise, I will report you to the Demon Lord. The Flame Demon King, Lung Hanyue, felt pleased. Subai is about to enter their encirclement. As long as he holds back the main forces, the Headless Sovereign can launch a surprise attack on the enemy's base. This battle will be won. Moreover, we can take advantage of the confusion to absorb Subai's troops' attributes. It's a perfect plan. Finally, riding the momentum of victory, we can seize the opportunity to take over the Demon Lord. So exhilarating. Indeed. Subai's forces on the 17th level of the Earth chased after the enemies along the crack. Meanwhile, the Earth Demon was continuously closing the canyon cracks, making it so that the crack could only advance and not retreat. Subai's troops finally reached the end of the crack, revealing a vast basin pit ahead. Countless enemies poured down, seemingly the gathering place for the foes, with around 20 million of them. Subai clenched his fist. Attack! Boom! A full-force assault shattered the pit. Countless circular explosions erupted like clusters of purple grapes, expanding in all directions. This power made Lung Hanyue hesitate. It seemed that the dozens of soldiers he had transformed using the black hole power would not guarantee an advantage and could lead to unnecessary losses. It would be better to hold back for now, letting these higher-ups bear the brunt. When the Headless Sovereign takes down the enemy's base and returns, they could join forces to annihilate this large group. This approach is definitely the safest choice. With that thought in mind, in the cold, dark heart of the month, a sly smile crept across the face of the one who plotted. With one stone, two birds, in the end, the sole victor would be me. You kings of races, I will keep filling my troops. Quickly, return to this side. According to the psychic detector, a large force was approaching our main base. The key was that these troops had not shown any signs on the map after radar scanning. This heightened the vigilance of the commander. The first thought that came to mind was invisibility. After all, he had a ring that could render him invisible. Although the environment had changed, it was still amusing to take it out and play with it. He arranged for some guard dogs, just in case. Beyond that, he didn't ponder much. Around his base, the members of various squads set up 3 lines of defense, connecting for protection. The troop count had returned to nearly 600. 000. After resting, they had regained their peak state. There shouldn't be any issues, right? Even if there were invisible enemies, they would at least trigger some alarms. In the main camp, members of each squad gathered together, excitement written all over their faces. Wow, that chase just now was incredibly thrilling. My team of fierce tigers took out hundreds of enemies. Hundreds? My troops are even more impressive. We killed nearly 1,000 enemies. Oh my, you are all so impressive. My team also did well, taking out several hundred. With these achievements, if we leave the battlefield and return to our home, we could brag about this for a lifetime. Haha, of course. This time, chasing down the enemy was truly exhilarating. Even the Demon Lord is nothing compared to this. Humans are stronger, haha. Chapter 298. Super Lightning Storm Taming the Forces of Nature. The million-strong enemy army falls into the hands of the commander. The Headless Sovereign strides across the sky. With a wave of his hand, an invisible force swept through, instantly collapsing the outermost first line of defense. A wild wind blew, and some troops were directly swept into the sky by the whirlwind. When they fell, they were nothing but scraps of flesh. Some heavy armored units, despite not being lifted into the air by the hurricane, had deep gashes left by the wind blades all over their bodies. Blood continuously poured out, air rushing in, forming blood clots. The headless whirlwind swept through, turning everything into a graveyard. In silence, the forces of the Headless Sovereign began to advance toward the second line of defense. At the same time, the disastrous situation of the first line of defense reached the ears of many squad members, leaving everyone in shock. Just moments ago, they were full of bravado, discussing strategies. How could their first line of defense be breached so easily? They hadn't even felt any external attack. Even the remaining elite of the team did not understand what was happening inside. The forces of Inkong suffered heavy losses, with 13 members taken down. What on earth is going on? The defense line collapsed so quickly. Could it be that an unspeakable or indescribable attack has struck us? Jeanlin concentrated, sensing from a distance. Found it. It's a hidden energy. Elemental enemies. Jeanlin was shocked. The reason elemental enemies are so powerful is due to their unique characteristics. First, elemental enemies are often immune to physical damage, making conventional military means ineffective against them. Second, they can greatly reduce most magical attacks, which severely limits magical offense as well. Additionally, different elemental attacks have their own features, some of which are unpredictable and hard to guard against. Athena's expression turned serious as she asked, "What type of element is attacking us this time?" Jeanlin gazed into the distance, his tone grave. "It's the wind element, which kills invisibly. The wind element is the most agile. It can launch attacks without being seen. The howling winds seem random but can devastate our defenses with overwhelming force. The wind blades are like the scythe of death, causing immense damage to our troops without warning. Moreover, wind element attacks are difficult to predict. They can strike from any angle, making it nearly impossible to defend against." Upon hearing this, everyone showed fear on their faces. "Quickly notify Subai." In the distance, Subai had already observed the characteristics of this strange demonic wind. It is elusive and kills invisibly. The wind is swift and fierce. In just a moment, the second defense line had been breached. Countless allies were thrown into the air, falling like boxes. The most touching scene unfolded. As members of other teams from the Wanjie team rushed over, disregarding the lives of their own soldiers, to inform and escape, Subai sneered, surprised that these people still had some sense of loyalty. A strong wind tests the grass, and a long road reveals a horse's strength. However, these elemental forces are nothing new. I experienced them back in the Magic City Academy. This time, it's just a larger version. There's nothing novel about it. These so-called elements are just capable of bullying the weak. When faced with truly powerful magical forces, they will still be oppressed. Just in time, the super lightning storm is ready. The enemy comes with wind, and I will summon a storm of wind, rain, and thunder as well. Let everyone dance together in it. Subai selected the range, covering the enemy elemental positions detected by the mind probe. He chose to release it. In an instant, dark clouds gathered above the wind element. And as the winds shifted, thunder and lightning clashed, creating a violent storm. A massive storm eye formed like a meteorological vortex, with the storm center engulfed in a chaotic mix of thunderstorms and the Headless One's whirlwind. The winds howled furiously, accompanied by flashes of lightning and thunder. The earth trembled violently under the onslaught of the storm, as massive boulders were lifted into the air and then hurled in all directions by the fierce winds. The Headless One observed this scene from a distance, his face filled with disdain, his eyes brimming with arrogance and pride. With his arms crossed, he sneered, "Humph. A mere magical attack dares to compete with my wind elements? It's simply overestimating itself. Before the power of wind elements, all magic will pale in comparison." However, as the two storms continued to clash, the Headless One's expression gradually turned serious. He was astonished to find that the potential of Subai's lightning storm was actually increasing, with thick bolts of lightning weaving through the tempest like giant dragons, releasing a chilling power. Although his own whirlwind remained strong, it began to struggle under the pressure of the lightning storm. How is this possible? My wind elements are being suppressed. The Headless One found it hard to believe. Meanwhile, Subai observed everything with a hint of hesitation on his face. This enemy was elusive and deadly, roaring like a tiger in the wind. His super lightning storm should be able to eliminate the opponent, right? Initially, Subai felt confident of victory. But now, the massive eye of the storm on the battlefield was swirling with dust, obscuring his vision. With anxiety, he realized he could see nothing. The opponent's wind elements had not vanished from his mental detector, indicating that his lightning storm might have been ineffective. It seemed the enemy was not susceptible to his tactics. As time passed, the lightning storm grew increasingly fierce, with powerful charges forming an enormous invisible net that tightly captured millions of strong wind elements. Under the influence of the electric charges, these wind elements began to waver, their originally violent power gradually subdued by the lightning storm. This situation caused the Headless One to panic even more. Did Subai's earlier move wipe out his entire force? Both sides shared a sense of unease until Subai's lightning storm finally ceased, allowing their anxious hearts to settle. Ahahaha, Subai, your strongest magic, your strongest attack, is nothing but this. My whirlwind of headlessness, with its powerful wind elements, remains intact. It seems that some attributes have mutated. The power of lightning has been added to your strong winds. Now, this is a whirlwind of headlessness imbued with lightning power. I am truly grateful. After the storm, the previously invisible whirlwind of headlessness was ignited by the electric charges from the lightning storm, each one bursting forth with arcs of lightning. The crackling sounds became clearly visible to the naked eye. Attack! Eliminate Subai! The Headless One pointed at Subai, commanding a full assault. But the army seemed to have lost control, remaining indifferent. Meanwhile, in Subai's satellite cloud map, the enemy's troops were completely revealed before his eyes. It wasn't just an abstract mass of arcs visible to the naked eye, but rather headless whirlwinds with green shapes and arcs. It was strange. Did these troops now belong to him? In Chapter 299, where all races of the heavens respected the strong, and treasures belonged to the virtuous, Subai attempted to command them. Indeed, these headless whirlwinds responded. Incredible. Wasn't this akin to a miracle? His lightning storm had unleashed a barrage of sparks that had completely subdued the enemy's headless whirlwinds. They had now seemingly defected to his side. Subai pondered. Perhaps it was the charges within the lightning storm that continuously penetrated the enemy's wind elements. These ions carried his signals, allowing him to control this million-strong army. A wave of satisfaction washed over him. The enemy's troops were formidable. If his own forces were to engage them directly, there would likely be significant casualties. After all, when these headless whirlwinds had been slaughtering his allies moments ago, they had done so without a trace, striking with lethal speed and immunity to physical attacks. He never expected that one day, he would also command an army immune to physical damage. Amazing. Why are you laughing? The headless sovereign floated in the air. Lacking a head, no expression could be seen. Subai forced a straight face, feeling as if his troops were no longer obeying him. Headless whirlwinds. Attack now. There was no response. Hurry up. Move. Why aren't you moving? What are you dazed about? The headless sovereign began to roar. Subai tried to reason. Is it possible that they have undergone some change and no longer obey your commands? Absolutely impossible. My powerful troops are impenetrable. No mental attack can harm their core. After all, wind elements are formless and immune to psychic damage. Subai was at a loss. It was clear he had lost control. The enemy was still trying to maintain their composure, and he couldn't help but admire them. Without heads, they couldn't show embarrassment, and thus, he couldn't see their awkward expressions. I'm not embarrassed. The one who should be embarrassed is you. Smile. If you dare to mock me, your end will come in the next second. The headless sovereign swung his arms, continuously issuing commands to his wind elements. Unfortunately, these wind elements had already recognized their master, and that was Subai. With a snicker, Subai could no longer hold back and burst into a hearty laugh, clutching his stomach. What's with your left hand and right hand in slow motion? Are you cosplaying those three little ones? The headless sovereign, gritting his teeth, commanded, Earth Wind Matron, step forward. It seemed that the headless sovereign, who had been humiliated by Subai for quite some time, was genuinely angry. A wrinkled old face slowly appeared on the neck of the headless figure. An old woman fell out from the neck, her limbs swelling, transforming into a cat-faced old lady. This cat-faced old lady wore old cloth shoes and tattered clothes, and she had a large bag slung over her back. Her behavior was odd, and her eyes darted suspiciously at Subai, which was somewhat unsettling. If Subai were an ordinary person, he would undoubtedly feel a chill run down his spine from her glare. Earth Wind Matron, gather those wind elements back and refine them into soldiers. The Earth Wind Matron threw the bag in her hand into the sky, which quickly transformed into a large bag formation with a diameter of 10 kilometers. A powerful suction force emerged, astonishing in its strength, akin to something that could draw soil from the ground. Subai's eyes turned cold, a glint flashing. Since they were all his soldiers, he could not allow the opponent to reclaim them. With a wave of his hand, the headless whirlwinds received their orders and flew toward the Earth Wind Matron. However, these headless whirlwinds, like a violent tornado, did not dive into the bag formation but instead circled around it. The wind blades sliced through the air, producing sharp sounds as they hurtled toward the Earth Wind Matron. The wind blades quickly enveloped her. She tried to struggle but was unable to withstand this overwhelming force. The sharp wind blades cut through her body mercilessly, and in just a moment, the Earth Wind Matron was torn into pieces. Meanwhile, the bag formation she had thrown into the sky also lost control and began to drift down with the wind. Subai acted swiftly, shooting out a flying soldier from his chest, securely catching the treasure in his hand. The headless sovereign was shocked, dazed, and unable to comprehend the situation, struck by a thunderbolt of disbelief. If he had a head and could express emotions, one could only imagine the look of astonishment on his face. How could my wind elements turn against me? Subai replied with a smile. In this world, the strong are revered. The forces of nature and the struggle of elements reflect this truth. It's a pity that you, self-proclaimed as a sovereign, cannot even grasp this matter. Now, your million-strong army has fallen into my hands, adhering to the natural order of the universe where the strong prevail. Your elements have submitted to my super lightning storm. No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The headless sovereign could not fathom it. Just then, the flying soldier presented the bag from the sky into Subai's hands. Wind bag. Artifact. Description. It has the dual functions of absorption and release, with a cooldown of 2 hours between uses. It can absorb up to 100,000 enemy troops and refine them into one's own forces. Upon choosing to release, it can deploy the refined 100,000 troops to assist in battle. Note: The refined troops possess wind attribute damage, with each attack inflicting an additional 600,000 wind attribute damage. I was just trying to snatch something. But I didn't expect to actually get a treasure. Looking at this attribute, Subai felt a bit scared. It can absorb 100,000 enemy troops. Fortunately, I didn't engage in direct combat with the opponent. Otherwise, just as the two sides met, I would have had 100,000 troops taken away. That's just too underhanded. Return my wind bag. The headless sovereign roared again, his heart seemingly bleeding. Damn it, why was I so careless today? Both my troops and treasures have been taken. The immense anger drove the opponent mad. The headless sovereign charged at Subai, hands swirling as powerful wind blades appeared out of nowhere, shooting towards Subai. However, Subai remained calm, gently waving his hand, and a solid wall of wind formed in front of him, blocking all of the headless sovereign's attacks. You shameless fiend. That wind bag is my treasure. How dare you steal it? Subai smiled and continued. I just said that in the myriad realms, strength commands respect. Treasures are the same. Those with virtue deserve them. This shameless remark was clearly something Subai had copied directly from online novels. You beast. I'll fight you. Subai? Once again, the headless sovereign charged forward. At the same time, a non-existent head slowly materialized, resembling a red-faced demon. Subai made an attacking gesture. Descending from above, a fearsome cruiser launched 2 cruise missiles aimed at the headless sovereign's head. Chapter 300. The Might of Great Victory, 7 Scrolls and Chaos on the Ground. The team members heading to the main base were taken aback by the bizarre scene in the sky, unable to comprehend the current situation. The once invisible wind elements now crackled with electric arcs, shining in the sky like celestial soldiers. Moreover, after the storm, the battle unexpectedly came to a halt. Troops were present, but the commander was not. Why was that? No one could explain it clearly. Only the team member with the strongest telekinetic abilities, Jean Lon. Noticed some clues. The wind was still the wind in the sky, but those hostile targets had long been undetectable. Instead, the mood relaxed, a gentle breeze flowed. The sky was vast and clear, with not a cloud in sight. Just moments ago, 2 missiles fell from the sky. The headless sage launched 2 wind blades in an attempt to intercept them, but failed to catch the wide-mouthed shells from the battleship. His body was blown apart, leaving a huge gap in his chest. At the same time, the wind elements surged forward, shredding him into pieces. Killing the headless sage grants high resistance to wind elements. Note, all troops gain 60 defense against wind damage. For this ordinary killing reward, Subai was quite satisfied. After all, the headless sage had already been completely drained by him. The million-strong wind element army, the relic wind pouch, and the final resistance boost could be said to be a threefold benefit. There was no need to be picky. Now, his troops in the distance were still engaged in battle with the enemy, both sides exhausting each other. The opposing force had already lost millions, and his side was also in a critically low state. Many units had already run out of health. They were on the verge of collapse. However, these wind elements could perfectly replenish the losses of his troops. Headless whirlwinds. From today on, you are officially renamed lightning storms. If you understand, strike me with the charges on your bodies. Boom, boom. Thunder roared once more in the sky. The lightning flashed, piercing the eyes. As if the entire universe was shining for Subai. He was very pleased. He raised 2 fingers and looked towards the distant mountains and valleys. Go forth and annihilate the enemy's millions. The north wind howled, like the neighing of horses. The wind elements responded to Subai's command. In the sky, the thunder moved. One group of wind elements easily lifted Subai, allowing him to fly with the wind, like an enlightened immortal. Instantly, the members of the squad on the ground were astonished. Especially the Central State team, proud of their captain Zhengya, was taken aback by Subai's ability to ride the wind. This method was simply unheard of. Our captain Zhengya can fly with a sword thanks to his powerful strength, which is already a high realm, but Subai's wind flight completely exceeds our understanding. Flying with a sword is impressive, but it requires external tools and has high demands on one's control and use of spiritual power. However, flying with the wind represents a new height of understanding the forces of nature, directly manipulating natural power, making the wind serve him. The gap between the two is like a chasm. Indeed, the captain's sword flight seemed peak to us, but compared to Subai's wind flight, they were on entirely different levels. Our captain was indeed far behind in comparison. This is not just a difference in flying methods, but a huge disparity in understanding the essence of power. On the other side of the battle, the Lord of Flames observed the tense situation with some anxiety. How long has this headless one been gone? Hasn't he succeeded in ambushing yet? Questions kept flooding in, only to fall back down, hitting the heads of every high-ranking figure nearby. Lord of Flames, can we really achieve victory if this continues? Similarly, other high-ranking figures turned their gazes towards the Lord of Flames, Lung Hanyue. Out of fear of his fiery whip, they merely exchanged glances without speaking. A silence enveloped the group until an elderly withered tree demon, furrowing his wrinkled brow, finally spoke up after a long pause. If this continues, we will all be exhausted. Can you, Lord of Flames, really remain unscathed? Lung Hanyue snorted. The demon lord has his own brilliant strategies, which are not for you to know. Just continue to follow my orders, and be careful, or my whip might find its way to your mouth. This statement ignited the long-suppressed dissatisfaction among the high-ranking figures. Anger was evident on everyone's face, their expressions fierce, as if they were about to devour Lung Hanyue. Unavoidably, the once overconfident Lung Hanyue shivered. He realized he could not handle the collective anger of these individuals. Deep down, he wanted to subdue all these high-ranking figures for his own benefit. Damn it. Why do you all defy me in front of my face? Once I control the demon lord, I will chop off all your heads and use them as chamber pots. Such wild thoughts filled his mind, but his words softened. Everyone, please calm down. It's not that I don't want to share, but there are some secrets involved. However, seeing that we share the same hardships and trust each other, I could reveal a bit. In fact, all of us, including myself, are just bait to draw fire. Upon hearing this, everyone grew even angrier. After fighting so hard, we turn out to be cannon fodder. Lord of Flames, we fight bravely alongside you to share your burdens. How did we become cannon fodder? This is unacceptable. Lung Hanyue quickly raised his hands to calm them down. Everyone, don't be hasty. The real plan is that we draw the majority of the enemy forces, while the powerful Headless One will launch a solo ambush on Su Bai's stronghold and eliminate them all. After that, he will send troops to assist us, and together we will take down Su Bai. Once these words were spoken, everyone finally quieted down, as if there was indeed some logic to it. However, there was one question that lingered. Can this Headless One really defeat Su Bai? Moreover, in Su Bai's stronghold, there are still other remaining team members from the multiverse battlefield. Although they are just minions, many frogs can overwhelm a single force. Everything is hard to say. Just when everyone fell silent, a scout reported from afar. In the distant sky, a fierce wind was moving, scattering dark and white clouds, quite imposing. Lung Hanyue clapped his hands, overjoyed. We won. We won. The Headless Lord has been defeated. Now we can regroup. Release the final troops. Assemble the entire army. Let us work together to win this last battle. The morale surged. The dozens of higher-ups emerged from their safe bases and came to the front lines, feeling proud and experiencing an unprecedented sense of ease as they released all remaining forces. Together, they numbered over 20 million. Chapter 301. Why are you kneeling, my lords? No need for formalities, please rise. These 20 million enemies stretched for thousands of miles, densely packed, and just a glance could trigger a fear of crowds. The howling wind roared, and above the wind elements, Su Bai sat cross-legged in midair. The previous ethereal appearance of a celestial being had vanished, replaced by an aura of dominance, reminiscent of ancient emperors. However, to outsiders, it seemed a bit like the emperor's new clothes. Though amusing, it felt absurd. Yet, the enemy troops covering a vast area cheered loudly, shouting, "Long live! We won! Long live!" The resounding voices could even be heard at Su Bai's base. On the ground, the higher-ups were equally excited. Su Bai's remaining vanguard could finally be annihilated. Lung Hanyue shouted, and then swung his flaming whip. You rascals, the Headless Lord has arrived. Why aren't you all kneeling to welcome him? This statement awakened those in a daze. Oh, all right. The higher-ups collectively knelt and bowed, leaving Su Bai utterly bewildered. Had these guys lost their minds? Then he thought, could it be that the wind elements in his hands made them believe that the Headless Lord had returned victorious? Very likely. Su Bai summoned tens of thousands of wind elements for protection, while the elements beneath him lowered him down, with only 30 meters between them. Even at such a close distance, the higher-ups continued to bow, not looking up at Su Bai. Su Bai couldn't help but chuckle. My lords, please rise. Something seems off. The voice is wrong, and oddly familiar. The first to raise his head was Lung Hanyue, who looked up and exclaimed, What the hell? Isn't that the captain of the demon squad, Su Bai? Wasn't he killed by the Headless Lord? At the same time, the other high-ranking figures also raised their heads. Everyone was confused. This seemed a bit off. Logically, the Headless Elder should be headless. Yet this young man on top had a handsome face. He looked very much like Su Bai, who had come knocking. One of the high-ranking figures pointed at Su Bai and exclaimed, You are not the Headless Elder. Of course not. I am the demon from your skies, Su Bai. He replied, Su Bai? What a shock. Shouldn't the Headless Elder have returned? How did it turn into Su Bai? Since you are the enemy, why are you taking advantage of us? The high-ranking figures were furious. This Su Bai was actually taking advantage of them. Su Bai spread his hands and said, Everyone, I've already come to kill you. If you want to bow down, I want to actively attack. It's fine for me to receive your bowing. I assent to it. His expression was a mix of playful and innocent. The high-ranking figures glared at him, standing up and pointing at Su Bai, shouting, Subai, you shameless scoundrel. How dare you toy with us like this? Taking such an advantage is utterly shameless. Do you think our kneeling is something you can easily bear? You demon. You will surely pay for your cunning today. Your despicable behavior is truly disgraceful. How can you, a supposedly moral human, stoop to such lowly acts? Yet Subai still appeared relaxed, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, revealing a mocking smile. Oh, then feel free to try and see who will end up in trouble today. After saying this, the wind elements surrounding him stirred slightly, as if demonstrating to everyone. Someone among the high-ranking figures shouted, "Everyone, attack together. Take him down in an instant." The high-ranking figures unleashed their skills simultaneously, casting the most powerful black magic from their respective races, crashing down towards Subai. With a wave of his hand, Subai's protective wind elements instantly blocked these attacks. Then, with a flick of his fingers, waves of wind elements surged toward the ground, swiftly taking down several high-ranking figures. Kill Mantis Evolver, gain 300,000 strength. Kill Elong Messenger, gain 300,000 agility. Kill Madworm, gain skill. Earth Affinity, kill Zombie Mammoth, gain item. Mammoth Ivory, kill Sky Eagle, gain 150,000 agility. In an instant, what was once a scene of reverence had turned into a bloody slaughter at the gate, with ministers being killed. Quick, summon your troops. And hold the line. The remaining high-ranking figures shouted, releasing their most elite forces for protection. These forces were ones they rarely used, kept hidden until the moment of life and death. Even before this, despite enduring countless whips from the cold moon, they still did not produce these life-saving elite troops. Now is the time when they are most needed. In less than half a tea time, the remaining surviving leaders quickly organized a batch of 100,000 elite soldiers. These elites belong to the strongest troops of their respective races. For example, the Fire Lizard leader is the strongest among the Fire race, and his elite troops are the Furious Fire Lizards, which are engulfed in raging flames, causing 100,000 damage per second to anyone who gets close for 200 seconds. The Frost Giant Bear leader is the strongest among the Ice race, and his elite troops are the Extreme Cold Ice Bears, emitting bone-chilling cold air, causing 80,000 damage per second to those struck, reducing their speed by 50 for 250 seconds. The Shadow Spider leader is the strongest among the Dark race, and his elite troops are the venomous Black Widow spiders, whose webs are poisonous, causing 70,000 damage per second to the poison for 280 seconds. The Storm Falcon leader is the strongest among the Storm race, and his elite troops are the Thunder War Eagles, which release lightning with each flap of their wings, dealing 900,000 damage per second to those struck and paralyzing them for 3 seconds. These elites are countless. Now, they all stood before Subai. However, against Subai's wind element, they were utterly useless. In an instant, the elites were sliced into pieces by Subai's wind blades. However, it seemed a bit wasteful for these elites to die without any reason. Therefore, Subai summoned the relic, Wind Pouch. In an instant, the pocket formation was deployed in the sky. Collect. A fierce wind arose. The elites on the ground and in the sky were continually sucked in by a strong wind, resembling a powerful vacuum cleaner, which astonished Subai, because, on the ground, there were still hundreds of tons of troops, which were easily sucked in as well. Upon seeing this, Subai realized that his wind element could easily avoid the pocket formation, perhaps related to the airflow of the pocket formation. Chapter 302, Refining 100,000 elites. Cold Moon surrenders to Subai. The pocket formation tightened, and about 70 to 80 of the enemy's elites had already been collected. The remaining ones were still resisting fiercely. Subai's tactics left those fleeing leaders in despair, especially since they couldn't understand how their wind elements were taken away by Subai. Moreover, he even ended up with an additional hero artifact. Although this hero artifact was not enough when facing millions of enemies, Subai's timing for using it was very precise, specifically collecting the elite troops of the leaders. Subai retrieved the wind pocket into his hands. This wind pocket was indeed a treasure. The various elite troops inside were so powerful that one could see through the fabric of the bag to the interior. Within the pocket, there was a vast expanse. A massive floating island hovered in the darkness of the universe, radiating dazzling starlight. On it, the captured troops were confined, unable to move. The howling wind whipped around them, leaving them disheveled. Their tightly shut eyelids were forced open, and their nostrils and mouths were no exception. As their skin quivered, strong gusts of wind rushed in, causing expressions of pain. Some troops, overwhelmed by the wind, lost control and began to glide. Is this the enhancement of wind elemental attributes? Subai couldn't help but exclaim. Indeed, just as he finished speaking, a percentage progress bar appeared. Wind attribute enhancement in progress. Current progress. 1. Wind attribute enhancement in progress. Current progress. 2. Wind attribute enhancement in progress. Current progress. 3. Wind attribute enhancement in progress. Current progress. 5. Note: the absorbed troops will have all attributes replaced with wind attributes after being refined in the wind pocket. Overall wind attribute damage will increase by 80. Gain wind force enhancement. Under the influence of level 4 or higher winds, will enter a healing state, recovering 1 of maximum health every 5 seconds. Truly impressive. Not to mention the additional 80 damage. Just being buffeted by the strong wind would trigger a healing state. On the battlefield, his attacks would be bursting with explosive force. This meant that as long as the attacks continued, this troop could remain in a perpetual healing state. The rest would be to clean up the remnants of the battlefield. Subai commanded, "Ride the wind. Charge toward the millions of remaining enemies surrounding our vanguard." This time, he aimed to clear out these minor threats before hunting down the remaining higher-ups. From a high vantage point, he looked down like a king. With a thought, the wind element surged down. Instantly, millions of troops were swept into the air, their bodies scattering in the sky. On the ground, the fan wind troops concentrated their firepower, quickly decimating over 1 million enemy forces. They then spread out to encircle and annihilate the remaining 10 million foes. It shouldn't take long to wipe them all out. Subai was not overly concerned at this point. Now, he began searching for the hidden higher-ups. These were the real big fish. Up to this moment, in Subai's eyes, the strength of these higher-ups was no longer worthy of his attention. Killing them was as simple as stepping on an ant. Meanwhile, underground in the Demon Nest, the most powerful underground fortress of the 17th layer of the Demon Palace, the remaining higher-ups were recuperating and resting. The battle turned out this way, and no one in power could have anticipated it. Despite having such a significant advantage, employing tactics to lure and ambush the enemy, they ended up losing so inexplicably. It was truly frustrating, especially for Lung Hanyue, who took over the Inferno Demon King. That detestable Subai managed to break through their net and even launched a counterattack. With fewer than 50,000 troops, he surprisingly eliminated over 10 million. This strength might even be greater than that of the Demon Lord. Thinking of this, Lung Hanyue felt even angrier. He remembered when both sides first entered the 10,000 Realms Great Wall. He had experienced Subai's strength firsthand. Although Subai was stronger, his rate of progress was exponentially faster. This was definitely unfair. Perhaps he truly was the favored child of the supreme deity. No, more like a favored offspring. Inferno Demon King, this defeat is all your fault. Now that the army is lost and everyone's fate is uncertain, you must bear this responsibility. Yes, you must bear it. Hurry back and get the Demon Lord to send reinforcements. Otherwise, level 17 will definitely fall. Behind him, 7 or 8 severely injured leaders limped over to Lung Hanyue's side. They needed to identify someone to take responsibility for this failure. Currently, who else besides the Inferno Demon King would be more suitable? Lung Hanyue slowly turned around. At this moment, the lighting was dim. He looked at these defeated soldiers with fierce eyes, and the expression of the Inferno Demon King also gradually changed. You are not the Inferno Demon King. That's right. I am the commander of the Moonlight Squad, Lung Hanyue. Boom. The multi-barreled rocket artillery obliterated the last hill. The enemies on the ground had been completely annihilated by Subai. This battle resulted in the elimination of at least over 20 million enemies. The area of level 1780 was under their control. There might still be some enemies left, but currently, their radar hadn't detected them. The remaining ones only needed to be searched for by other squad members. Stray soldiers were not a concern. Subai was very satisfied with the results, especially with the newly produced Red Alert Army, which had seen a 5-fold increase in strength compared to before. It could be said that they had become more elite. They also obtained the 5 Elements Gate, allowing them to summon 5 element skeletons, as well as 1 million wind elements and wind pockets. These unique troops and treasures, not to mention the attributes and abilities gained from defeating those leaders, were significant. Level 17 was a bountiful harvest. After organizing the troops and resting in place, suddenly the mountain that had been flattened in front of them split in two. Amidst the crumbling rocks, a hell skeleton slowly rose, towering over 100 meters high. A skyscraper shaped like a cube. Suddenly, a strong smell of blood filled the air as a hellish skeleton opened its mouth wide. A fiery figure slowly emerged from within. Subai waved his hand, and the wind element immediately gathered and rushed forward. Don't kill me. I'm an underground comrade infiltrating the enemy forces. I'm the captain of the moon surface team, Lung Hanyue. Before long, the fiery figure's face rapidly changed, transforming into the Lung Hanyue that Subai hadn't seen in a long time. This guy, Subai had met once at the Wanjie Great Wall. After that, he thought he had died. In fact, the two sides had crossed paths again later, but Lung Hanyue had used a possession skill to control a lord, making Subai unaware that he was actually fighting Lung Hanyue. Lung Hanyue lifted the head he carried at his waist. Captain Subai, look. This is the enemy I killed. Protecting the Wanjie Great Wall is everyone's responsibility. Subai stared at him. This guy was quite crafty, hiding so deeply. They hadn't met in direct combat before, yet he suddenly appeared and had infiltrated the enemy ranks. He snorted softly. Things weren't that simple. However, Subai wasn't a narrow-minded person. This guy did have some ability. After all, the head he carried was proof of his achievements. Since he was from the same team, there was no need to be tense. They could discuss things back at the camp. Lung Hanyue was anxious and swallowed hard. He feared that Subai might lead him into the main camp, which was why he said they shouldn't fight among their own. But what if the other side can find him and did something bad? That was quite possible. So, he quickly took out the treasure given by the Demon Lord. Captain Subai, by coincidence, I've obtained a treasure, the important black hole power from the Demon Lord. I believe that using it to enlighten your troops will significantly enhance their strength. Subai took the black hole power from him. This attack comes with an attraction effect. Wow, if this is used on my ultimate weapon, wouldn't that make it invincible? However, his expression remained calm and composed. The two of them returned to the main camp, one in front of the other. Along the way, Lung Hanyue kept staring at Subai's back. Although the latter had the protection of the wind element, he had stolen the power of a superior being and could unleash a beam cage. Perhaps he could ambush Subai, temporarily confine him, and possess him? If that happened, he could take over Subai and lead other squads to defeat the Demon Lord. Then he could become the ruler of all worlds. It seemed like a decent choice. After contemplating, he ultimately decided to abandon this plan. Perhaps Subai's strength is still slightly lacking to contend with the Demon Lord? Let's wait and see. After all, he can also take over bodies. In fact, he is somewhat prepared for this change in power. The Frostmourne within him carries an evil force that he cannot tolerate at all. If there were truly mind control techniques, they would have long been ineffective against him. Subai did not take this matter to heart. After returning to the base, all the team members in the 10,000 Realms battlefield finally gathered. Everyone, we have worked together for so long, and I have seen your return. Protecting the Great Wall of the 10,000 Realms with your current strength is still insufficient. Therefore, I will be sending you some troops to enhance our defenses against the invasions from various races. Since the Demon Lord had opened the gates of the Demon Palace early, Subai's million troops began to slowly shift their defenses. The troops he produced now dealt over 5 times the damage compared to before. It could be said that the old troops had already fallen behind the current environment and were unsuitable for the current version, making it impossible for them to dominate. These weaker troops were also troublesome to control, like burdens. It would be better to hand them over to these teams. This way, they could assist in defense. And in the future, if he left the main god space, these individuals could still use their advantageous combat strength to guard humanity's future. Upon hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. They had experienced the strength of Subai's troops firsthand, and now they were to be given away. What a good deal. However, Subai quickly shifted the conversation. Of course, my troops need to be purchased with gold. You just need to provide some capital. For example, a gold bar can exchange for 1 basic soldier, and a gold brick can exchange for a war vehicle. Of course, jade, agate, and gemstones are also acceptable. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Weren't troops usually recruited with energy? But the other party was asking for gold as payment. Wow, isn't that much cheaper than energy? These team members had visited many planets and parallel universes, many of which were apocalyptic. There was gold everywhere that no one wanted. And a gold brick's value was less than a pack of instant noodles. The key was that no one knew why Subai treated this worthless stuff as treasure to be collected. Many felt dejected and frustrated. In the last world, they had discovered a massive gold mine, and even a treasure cave filled with tons of gold. If they had known, they would have moved it all into their storage rings. That stuff, they all treated as garbage. Nobody picked up gold. This can be easily solved. Do you see that square building in the middle? It's called the Troop Recycling Station. You can send your soldiers in there for recycling and exchange resources for soldiers. After saying this, Subai looked towards Lung Hanyue. Although you have just joined, I welcome your participation in the exchange as long as there are gold and gems to trade. Upon hearing this, Lung Hanyue was shocked. He didn't expect Subai to genuinely treat him without setting up a trap, nor did he unite with others to suppress him. Such magnanimity was truly admirable. Others were also taken aback. Lung Hanyue had played a clever hand, being the only one in the entire team. It was unclear whether his other teammates had been left behind or not. Keeping someone like him in the team could potentially bring trouble. However, Subai's demeanor showed he was unconcerned, indicating his strong character and capabilities. After all, the line between nurturing potential threats and using talent is quite blurred. Well, I'll leave the next steps to my secretary, Sato Takura, to handle. Subai chuckled and left the main tent. Having them pay to recruit him was not a loss at all. Producing a soldier required 50 times the funding, while Subai charged them 100 times the amount. This way, he could earn money while also phasing out the old troops. You might profit greatly, but I will never lose. For the other members of the team, Subai's mobilized brothers, Imperial warriors, and allied soldiers were all extremely desirable forces. After the exchange, Each of them treated these as their prized elite troops, placing them in the most crucial positions. What could be better than this? Lung Hanyue clasped his fists. Captain Su Bai is indeed magnanimous. Such a crucial force is willing to be shared with us, and to buy them back with such seemingly worthless gold. How can we repay such great kindness? Yes, Captain Su Bai's actions are truly benevolent. In this battlefield of countless worlds, such generosity is rare. To exchange abundant gold for such powerful units is like receiving a windfall. One team member remarked, Captain Su Bai's generosity makes us feel ashamed. We thought the newcomer would face much suspicion, yet the captain treats him so sincerely. With such a broad mind, he will surely lead us to carve out a place in this battlefield of countless worlds, another member added. Once the flattery subsided, Sato Takara spoke up. Those needing to exchange gold should hurry, and those needing to return to the resource recovery station should organize their teams. I will tally them up one by one, with no room for bargaining. Chapter 304. Troop Transition. Preparing for the 18th layer of the Demon Palace, click to construct the new type of Apocalypse tank. Click to construct the new type of Kirov. Click to construct the new type of Prism tank. Click to construct the Athena rail vehicle. Click to construct the new type of Ghost King. With a rumble, several newly built arsenals kicked into high gear. As the new units rolled off the assembly line one after another, Su Bai's combat power continued to grow exponentially, reaching 5 times its previous level. 80 million in funds had been consumed, and the newly produced troops had reached 50,000. Su Bai began to organize and integrate the new forces. At this point, the new unit was fully assembled, while the old unit was still being auctioned off. Although there were some emotional ties, those comrades would likely continue to shine under new ownership. Other squad members were constantly using their mental energy to create their own troops, funneling combat power into Su Bai's forces, all in exchange for that one precious mobilization soldier. Often, it took dozens of individuals to be worth just one mobilization soldier. Many squad members started to head back, searching the surroundings for mineral veins or enemy soldiers who might have jewelry. Accumulating enough of these scraps could at least exchange for a good comrade. The sight of the scruffy, bearded man, his accent, and the vodka in his arms deeply attracted the attention of other squads. With this back and forth, Su Bai still managed to gain 3 billion. The funds on the account were ample, ensuring that there would be no shortage of troops due to a cash flow issue. If not for this trade in personnel, replacing all his troops with units of 5 times the combat power would not be an easy task. Even if he found several large mineral veins, he would still need mining vehicles to transport the resources back, which was time-consuming and labor-intensive. Lung Hanyue wiped the sweat from his forehead, sending all the troops he had plundered, along with his original forces, to Su Bai's recovery station. Now, his entire unit had been replaced with Su Bai's mobilization soldiers, including Grey Bear tanks, archery girls, and Imperial warriors, such a hodgepodge. He touched the hidden soldier ring in his hand, relieved that he had enough points to exchange for one with a capacity of 100,000. Great. Su Bai is truly righteous. Wait, not great at all. He sold all his troops. If it came down to a fight with Su Bai, those troops that once belonged to him would not follow his commands to attack their original master. He gasped, realizing the cunning of Su Bai. As the captain of the demon squad, his mind was sharp and his methods ruthless, killing without shedding blood. Forget it. Su Bai, you can keep living for a while longer. Once I gather enough energy to unleash an army of 1 million, I'll take you down. Gritting his teeth, he suppressed the thought of overtaking Su Bai. At that moment, Su Bai approached, and Lung Hanyue immediately changed his expression, welcoming him with a smile. Captain Su, you're here. Please, have a seat. I want to sit. I want to discuss something with you. You say, since you have the ability to infiltrate the Demon Lord's inner circle, can you make another trip to map out the route to the 18th layer of the demon attack and locate the enemy's royal city? I estimate that by the time we reach the final layer, the intensity of the attacks will increase exponentially compared to this layer. Having prior knowledge of the enemy's defenses will be beneficial. Su Bai spoke slowly. At the same time, he added, if you help me with this task, I will send you another batch of troops. Lung Hanyue took a deep breath. Another batch of troops. Although Su Bai's troops might not be worth much in exchange for gold, the key issue is that there is currently no gold available. They can only be exchanged for energy, often requiring hundreds of their own soldiers to trade for a single ordinary unit from the enemy. If they could gather some intelligence, it would be a free gain. How could such a great opportunity exist in the world? Immediately, he cupped his fists. I am willing to go through fire and water for you, no matter the cost. Su Bai smiled and patted his shoulder. Good. With both courage and strategy, I now entrust these 200 elite troops to you. Treat them well, and don't let the brothers feel disheartened. With a wave of his hand, 200 formidable tanks advanced a step forward. Their massive cannons turned simultaneously, looking imposing and powerful, though they had already retreated from the environment. Lung Hanyue was overjoyed. Su Bai's war vehicles. How much would it cost to buy these 200 tanks? This is fantastic. He couldn't help but rush over, gently stroking the cannon of the tank. The hard metal had a pleasant scent of gunpowder. He even leaned in to kiss the cannon. Su Bai found it hard to watch. Okay, that's enough. When do we depart? Now. You just wait for news here on the 17th layer. I will not fail in my mission. On the other side, there had been no news from the front lines for a long time. The scouts sent out reported that the troops had completely collapsed. The remaining over 10 million troops were all bottlenecked at the passage from the 17th layer to the 18th layer, waiting for the gates of the Demon Palace to open again so they could retreat to the 18th layer. Upon hearing this news, the remaining high-ranking figures and even stronger dignitaries present became agitated again. The headless dignitary was defeated. The King of Flames was also defeated. Over 300 high-ranking figures were all killed. The 17th layer had lost 80 of its territory. These dire tidings echoed throughout the Demon Palace. Even the headless dignitary had fallen. Would it be of any use to send more troops to support the 17th layer? No one could provide an answer. Roar. Finally, apart from the Demon Lord, another voice rang out. As expected, this child is useless. Hearing this voice, the Demon Lord was so frightened that he hurriedly fell from his throne, kneeling and kowtowing on the spot. Brother, this time in the battlefield of all realms, I was careless. Dark energy surged, gathering above the throne. Gradually, it formed the likeness of a Demon Lord, though this Demon Lord appeared slightly older and more grotesque. His name is Demon Emperor, the elder brother of the Demon Lord, and his strength surpasses that of his younger sibling. Their clan controls the myriad races across the heavens, essentially being the kings of all celestial beings. The true leader is the Demon Lord's father, the Demon Sovereign. This time, the Demon Lord took the initiative to fight, but unexpectedly, he was defeated by Su Bai, losing everything. Now, he is stuck in a predicament, being scolded by his brother, the Demon Emperor. The enemy has reached our doorstep. And yet you are still acting like a coward. Is this how you, the commander of the battlefield, show your worth? Are you living up to our father's training? I am giving you a chance to survive. Quickly take up your weapon and fight the incoming enemies. Eliminate them, and you might save some face. Otherwise, I will imprison you and send you to our father for punishment. The Demon Lord bit his lip. Now, there was only one path left. He had to confront Su Bai head-on. Would he really let his father deal with him? He knew he would be seen as a worthless child in his father's eyes, forever unable to rise again. And it could even implicate his mother and the entire Charm Demon clan. Chapter 305. The Last Wave, going all out, leaving the 18th level Demon Palace. The Demon Lord gazed at the millions of troops before him, feeling increasingly uneasy. After all, Su Bai had continuously shattered the Demon Palace, winning battle after battle, and morale was high. Meanwhile, he had retreated repeatedly, losing troops and armor. He had to admit one thing to himself. Su Bai was a human demon. Demon Su Bai of the blue sky. What should he do? Boom, boom. In the distance, at the 17th level checkpoint, sounds of cannon fire echoed, causing the 18th level to tremble. The final defense at the 17th level was forged from meteorite iron, a wall of bronze and iron, seemingly indestructible. However, when Su Bai's Apocalypse tank, Kirov airship, Steel Wanderer, and Illusion rocket artillery charged into battle, that seemingly impregnable defense didn't seem so strong anymore. The defenders, who had initially charged with roars, quickly turned into cries of despair. This process took less than 30 minutes. What shocked the Demon Lord even more was that Su Bai's firepower remained similar to before. Yet the destructive capacity and damage values had increased 2 to 3 times compared to the past. This terrifying growth in strength. Could this still be considered human? Let alone the fact that he was now facing Su Bai head-on. Even if it were his own brother, the Demon Emperor, he probably wouldn't be able to take down Su Bai with a single strike. Thunderous roars filled the air as the iron-cast defense line seemed to shake. In the distance, beams of immense golden light shot forth, exploding like golden elixirs, shattering the small universe and causing the Demon Palace to resonate. The damage was catastrophic, continuing for over a dozen strikes before finally ceasing. Of course, the Demon Lord had no idea that Su Bai was unleashing the Allied forces' super weapon, the Proton Collider. Otherwise, the damage wouldn't have been so explosive. However, this barrage of artillery fire caused the Demon Lord, who had just mustered the courage to ascend to the 17th floor, to retreat once again. Su Bai was truly terrifying. Could the human race really rise to dominate above all other races? On Su Bai's side, seeing the enemy's absolute defense line falter, he felt a sense of relief. The use of the super weapon had created a small breach, and with another nuclear strike, that breach would widen. At that point, they could charge in, and the enemy would be crushed. This made Su Bai deeply appreciate the power of the Red Alert system. Although it wasn't interstellar technology like that of extraterrestrial civilizations, nor was it the human-beast magic of Azeroth, it had forged a path of dominance through sheer human strength, rising to challenge all realms. Looking ahead at the bright flash that erupted, followed by a mushroom cloud, Su Bai launched his nuclear bomb. The enemy's defenses finally suffered a significant breach. Having long-stationed troops here, it was time to attack. Su Bai shouted loudly, "The enemy's walls are breached. Charge into the city. Annihilate everything. Yura 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 Yura." Su Bai lead on. Everything follows Su Bai's command. Morale reached its peak, and their cheers drowned out the sounds of cannon fire. Even the demon lord on the 18th floor could hear the roars from the 17th floor and nearly lost his footing. Su Bai, satisfied, drew Frostmourne, freezing everything in sight. He pointed his sword at the enemy's final defense line. Over 20,000 red alert troops charged forward, braving radiation, heading straight for the previous breach. The troops operated in an orderly fashion, with artillery suppressing fire and infantry clearing the way. Faced with such a large-scale invasion, the enemy struggled to withstand the assault, resulting in rapid casualties in the hundreds of thousands. The Demon Lord could only call for the magic shield to maintain defense. But the shield was repeatedly struck by long-range missiles, and cracks began to widen. The Demon Lord felt embarrassed. He had thought that these attacking enemies were all the forces Su Bai had at his disposal, until the appearance of a certain individual. He was filled with even more dread. That individual was the King of Flames, whom he thought had perished long ago. In fact, it was a disguise by Lung Hanyue. This person had been sent by a certain figure to infiltrate the 18th layer to gather intelligence. Due to his stealthy approach and lack of a fire-based unit of his own, he was quickly captured by scouts and brought back. The Demon Lord, regaining his solemn and cold demeanor, asked, "Do you still have the face to return?" "My lord," he responded, "what use is it to kill me now? Moreover, I know that continuing to fight alone means certain death, and returning also leads to death. So do you know why I came back?" Before the Demon Lord could answer, Lung Hanyue unexpectedly knelt down and shouted, "I refuse to accept this. If I don't fully contribute the intelligence about that individual to you, what use is it for me to die in battle?" The Demon Lord was in a dire situation. At this moment, someone was delivering intelligence to him, which was somewhat suspicious by all accounts. That individual was known for his bloodthirst, and under his command, none of the myriad races survived. Yet, the King of Flames seemed to repeatedly escape death, which raised suspicion. However, the Demon Lord was already panicking. Even if he had to seek divine intervention, he was willing to take the risk. "If you can't say it now, I'll have your head." Then, Lung Hanyue indeed recounted in detail the troops' strengths and attack routes of that individual, leaving no room for doubt. He truly excelled in his deceit. Upon hearing this, the Demon Lord's eyes sparkled. The enemy was weaker than expected. There was hope for breaking through. As the battle continued, the previously fallen Iron City walls had become the defense line for that individual's forces. The main army arranged their defenses according to the walls, while the vanguard split into three paths, continuously attacking the three strongholds behind the walls. After fierce battles, two of the peaks were flattened, and one even flew that individual's red flag. Majestic, victorious in every battle, this was an invincible iron-blooded army. Boom. In the distance, the fourth stronghold erupted in flames, smoke billowing into the sky. It was evident that a hole had been blown in the stronghold's roof, flames continuously erupting from within, akin to a beacon in a torture chamber. Joy filled that individual's eyes. In today's battle, nearly 3 million high-ranking enemies had been swept away. At night, the troops were stationed to rest after a tiring day of fighting. The gates of the 5 elements swung open, and the 5 element skeleton stepped out as the main force for nighttime defense, allowing him to sleep soundly. After all, he had other activities to attend to at night, and he certainly didn't want the sounds of cannon fire outside to affect his speed and strength. However, as the wind calms, the trees do not stop. In the nighttime, the battle continues. The 5 element skeletons are wreaking havoc everywhere. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth unleash their powers. They have repelled waves of nighttime sneak attacks from the enemy, and even taken down 3 temporary command posts. They have slain 5 higher-ranking enemies. Even Su Bai, who is exerting himself, feels his strength increasing, charging into the sky. How exhilarating. Chapter 306. The Demon Lord's own safety is at risk, seeking help in desperation, however. Yuriko's face turned red. "Master," with such a loud voice, "do you want to echo through the entire army?" As soon as she finished speaking, the station troops responded with roars. Roar, roar. It is evident that although these troops are resting, they have not truly fallen into a deep sleep. Everyone is still in an excited state. The thrill of battling enemies during the day has left them exhilarated. Even General Su Bai's shout of "how exhilarating" echoed the sentiments of the soldiers. By dawn, the 5 element skeletons regrouped, and the gates of the ghost realm closed. After taking stock, the enemy casualties were unclear, with 2,000 losses on their side. However, this indicates one thing. Although the Red Alert forces did not mobilize at night, the enemy must have launched fierce counterattacks. Otherwise, the losses on their side would not be so high. But what does it matter? After all, they were summoned. It cost them nothing. During the day, Subai stepped out of the main tent. As expected, the situation was as he had calculated. At the edge of the defense line, the mountains were covered with enemy corpses. The previous day's kills must have been substantial. With a wave of his hand, rebirth of the undead. These slain enemies stood up again, joining the ranks of cannon fodder, continuing to attack and plunder. At the front lines of the 18 layers of the Demon Palace, I appoint you as the overall commander, overseeing all military affairs. Take down Subai, and you will gain wealth and glory. The celestial stars are yours to take at will, promised the Demon Lord. Lung Hanyue knelt to receive the reward, feeling overjoyed. He had thought he would be captured upon returning and would lose half his life at the very least. Instead, he received the title of Marshal and was entrusted with an important task by the Demon Lord, who even handed over his last treasured item to him, the Soul Lock Bell. Lock of Souls, Grade, Relic, Description. Shaking this Soul Lock Bell can activate mysterious powers, allowing all soldiers to share the damage they receive. At the same time, it increases the overall defense of all soldiers by 30, greatly enhancing their defensive capabilities. When the sound of the Soul Lock Bell rings on the battlefield, it envelopes the entire army like an indestructible shield, allowing the soldiers to face strong enemies without fear and to charge forward, becoming the key relic that can turn the tide of battle. Having this item allows for shared damage. Divided among the troops, they can withstand the damage from Subai while dealing melee damage. They will be incapacitated. Furthermore, the Demon Lord has shared the connection of the troops with a being possessing the strongest defense and health. That being is the Earth Demon Dragon, which has been sleeping beneath the battlefield of all realms at a depth of 10,000 meters. This creature has 9 billion health points and 200 million defense. With damage sharing, wouldn't my melee troops be invincible? Subai, although you have treated me well, I'm sorry. The Demon Lord has given me more. Of course, after I kill you, I will return to take the Demon Lord's life and become the king of all realms to avenge you. Lord Demon, rest assured. If I cannot defeat them this time, I will commit seppuku to atone. Lung Hanyue guarantee it. The Demon Lord nodded lightly. You should go quickly. The last 800-mile fortress on the 17th level. Subai watched as his troops continuously leveled up, all becoming 3-star elites. The power of all troop types was doubled once again. Taking down the last 800-mile fortress would put the 17th level firmly in my grasp. Subai took a deep breath. This time, if I defeat the Demon Lord, is there a possibility that no one will dare to invade humanity again in the future? Since ancient times, united we stand. With one heart and mind, humanity has survived through countless competitions. From the days of hunting and gathering, we fought against beasts and emerged victorious. Now, we are battling against all races, seemingly indicating that humanity is continuously climbing one step after another, breaking through, and advancing towards greater strength. With the remaining 800 fortresses taken down, the entire army mobilized. 30,000 warriors charged forward, braving the enemy's artillery fire. The two sides clashed along a front that extended for dozens of kilometers, yet they continued to push forward. Smoke billowed from the ground, dark clouds rolled. One fortress after another was uprooted. The various races, engulfed in flames, fled from within. Some ran a few steps only to be turned to ashes, while others rolled on the ground, crushed by the tanks. 20 minutes later, the bombing from the sky had ceased. The 800-mile fortress was completely destroyed. Lung Hanyue, who was returning to the 17th level, was filled with shock upon witnessing this scene. The massive cucumber-shaped ship in the sky and the mushroom clouds it dropped were too powerful. He stood there dumbfounded, his right hand touching the concealed soldier ring, which still held various soldiers and those 200 precious tank killers that Subai had sold him. Damn it, that bastard Subai. You are truly ruthless, keeping the truly powerful troops for yourself. Originally, I was given only minor tasks. It wouldn't he do if I were to personally lead my troops to the 17th level and confront Subai. The enemy would definitely realize that I had defected. If I were captured, I would surely face dire consequences. After much deliberation, I decided to remain at the front line of the 18th level, only sending my troops to the 17th level. I would assess the situation then. From afar, Subai observed the battlefield with growing satisfaction. Every destroyed bunker was marked by a red flag of the Allied forces. The enemy was launching yet another massive assault, with numbers reaching into the millions. Subai snorted coldly. They were simply unaware of their impending doom. The old troops were withdrawn for rest, while heavy artillery launched long-range strikes. The station forces quickly initiated their attack. The 150mm retractable cannons bombarded the enemy relentlessly, accompanied by the mechanical creations of the Flamewind faction. The artillery fire was relentless. However, this time the assault was not as effective as before. It seemed the enemy had toughened up, which excited Subai. After such a long time, Challenging units had finally arrived. Constantly defeating weaker foes felt stagnant, as if there was no progress even in a game. Since a formidable opponent had appeared, it was time to engage them seriously. In the distance, the approaching enemy had reached the first line of defense where Su Bai's forces were stationed. It was a firepower net composed of allied soldiers. The sound of heavy machine guns echoed, but the effect seemed minimal. As the monsters drew closer, they pounced like hungry wolves, kicking up clouds of dust. Soon after, half of a soldier's body was sent flying, while the lower half was devoured by the enemy. Su Bai took out the previously unused power of the black hole and chose to deploy it. In the next moment, the yellow energy orbs released by the previous evaluator transformed into black orbs, resembling small black holes, and fell into the enemy's formation. Immediately, a mass of black energy began to swirl. The surrounding enemies were drawn into this black orb, with nearly 100 foes being absorbed in an instant, resembling a miniature black hole. After sustaining this state for about 30 seconds, a sudden collapse and explosion occurred, ejecting the absorbed enemies outward and significantly diminishing their numbers. Chapter 307. The Evaluator Shoots Black Holes? This life has arrived. Buzzing sounds filled the air as the black hole landed, consuming yet another wave of enemies. Plundering enemy attributes: 180,000 strength, 270,000 agility, 700,000 defense, 2,000,000 health. Plundering enemy attributes: 180,000 strength, 270,000 agility, 700,000 defense, 2,000,000 health. Plundering enemy attributes: 180,000 strength, 270,000 agility, 700,000 defense, 2,000,000 health. Something feels off, Su Bai thought in surprise. Although the enemy's creatures suddenly became tougher, they weren't as easy to wear down as before. However, the enemy's attributes still seemed fixed. After using the power of the black hole, each attack could plunder 1 attribute point from the enemy. But now, the amount being plundered had already exceeded 5. What was going on? Su Bai was puzzled. Still, since he could plunder extra, perhaps this stabilizer had an additional plundering function? He didn't want to think too much about it. He clicked to purchase 2,000 stabilizers, instantly consuming 20 million funds. Money flowed like water, granting the power of the black hole. Buzz. At this moment, the stabilizers could already be considered black hole stabilizers. The power they emitted was unprecedentedly terrifying, and they were continuously greedily devouring the enemy's attributes to grow. Even more astonishing was that these stabilizers not only plundered a large amount of attributes from the enemy on the battlefield, but also the enemy's attack attributes. Upon closer inspection, it seemed these vehicles had dozens of enemy skill icons added to their attack skills. However, these icons appeared in a dimmed state. Each time they attacked the enemy, the progress of the icons would increase by 1. This was the most shocking revelation for Su Bai. If that were the case, every attack could also plunder some of the enemy's skills. The black hole effect was indeed vast. No wonder each stabilizer had dozens of skill progress bars. They were truly invincible. The treasure that Lung Hanyue gave him was indeed the most important item for the Demon Lord. It felt somewhat unfair to exchange 200 tank killers for it. However, Su Bai pushed these thoughts aside, filled with anticipation. After plundering through dozens of skill bars, how many powerful skills would these stabilizers unleash? It was exhilarating to think about. In the upcoming battles, as more stabilizers joined the fight, the enemy's attacks became less fierce than before, especially on their own hill, where all the stabilizers were deployed, along with some mechanical creations. Unfortunately, those creations didn't deal as much damage as the stabilizers, making the battle rather dull. Logically, Su Bai should have returned to the tent to set up with Yuriko by now. But Su Bai did not leave. He wanted to witness the true highlight moment of the pacification. Suddenly, a pacifier was the first to complete the plundering. The pacifier's artillery vehicle was surrounded by telekinetic energy. A vigorous fighting spirit surged above it, and a powerful strike aura was beneath its feet. These passive skills had previously belonged to enemy units, but now they had all been plundered. At the same time, the artillery shell was launched. 2 black holes instantly targeted the enemy formation. Advanced combo. Wow. Even the machinery had learned advanced combo skills. Impressive. Su Bai exclaimed. The black holes crashed into the enemy formation with a thunderous sound. An explosion of frost nova erupted, causing all surrounding enemies to enter a slowed state, subsequently being drawn into the black holes. Meanwhile, the other black hole landed and exploded, releasing countless thunderballs that continuously unleashed chain lightning, knocking enemies to the ground in paralysis. Throughout the battle, Lung Hanyue did not blink. The fiercest beasts of the underground battlefield had already been connected. His troops continued to fall. There was no way to win, absolutely no way. He touched the strongest treasure bell given to him by the Demon Lord. Otherwise, he could turn over the treasure to Su Bai and regain the other's trust. Perhaps he could also snag a couple of Su Bai's soldiers to play with. After all, while what he had was powerful, it was also connected to the underground beasts. In regular battles, there weren't that many blood cows for him to connect with. Keeping this thing seemed to have no real use. All pacifiers disengaged and moved forward 1 kilometer to redeploy. Su Bai looked at the apocalypse tank he had paved the way with and ordered the pacifiers behind him. At this point, the number of produced pacifiers had reached 1,500, boasting impressive combat power. Especially the oldest batch, each had gained quite a few skills. However, after fighting for so long, the plundered enemy skills were not particularly powerful. This left Su Bai somewhat dissatisfied. It seemed abundant, but was essentially just empty calories, superficial. Just then, the ground began to shift again. Su Bai immediately sensed something was wrong. He quickly ordered the troops to halt their advance and continue to deploy in place. Boom. Dust from the ground shot up to several thousand meters high as a pitch-black evil dragon emerged. Land Boundary Dragon. Power, 80 million. Agility, 30 million. Defense, 100 million. Health, 75. 399 billion. Skill, Destructive Dragon Flame. Deals 100 million damage in a straight line ahead, leaving behind a continuous burning flame that deals 5 million damage per second for 15 seconds. Skill, Dragon Might Impact. Reduces all attributes of enemies within a 2,000-meter radius by 60, while increasing its own attributes by 40 for 25 seconds. Skill, Berserk Charge. Instantly rushes forward 8,000 meters, dealing 1.2 billion damage to enemies in its path and stunning them for 5 seconds, dealing an additional 30 million damage upon landing. Skill, Magic Energy Guardian. Summons a shield that can absorb 800 million damage. During the shield's existence, it restores 15 million health per second for 35 seconds. Wait, Su Bai's eyes sparkled. He didn't expect such a powerful unit to exist. To others, this dragon seemed like a ferocious lion blocking the way, capable of taking lives at any moment. But in Su Bai's eyes, this creature looked like a delicious fat sheep. With such powerful attributes and high damage skills, his more than 2,000 units of peacekeepers could each take a bite, leaving them dripping with flavor. Especially after plundering this dragon's skills, wouldn't they become even more formidable? Apocalypse Tank, charge forward. Berserk Beastmen, hold the line. With that, Su Bai waved his hand, simultaneously unleashing the skills Undead Possession and 5 Elements Mystical Domain. These 2 skills had just finished their cooldowns. Now, it was time for them to serve as cannon fodder, buying time for his peacekeepers to plunder. Chapter 308. Crazy Plundering of Enemy Attributes. Peacekeepers dealing over 100 million damage. Buzz. The black hole landed on the Land Boundary Dragon and quickly exploded. The gravitational forces stretched and tore at each other, seemingly ripping apart the dragon's outer scales. The mutual attraction slowed the dragon's attack speed significantly. On the ground, the Berserk Beastmen leaped onto the giant dragon like monkeys, slashing with knives and axes, tearing with hands, and biting with teeth. The dragon let out a roar, reducing damage taken by all units within a 2-kilometer radius by more than 60. Their movement speed also slowed correspondingly. Both sides entered a stalemate mode, prolonging the battle. However, Su Bai's peacekeepers were unaffected. They were ranged units, like modern high-tech catapults, accurately striking the enemy. Moreover, the damage increased with each hit until the plundered attributes reached their limit, damage exceeding twice the normal amount. Each hit can inflict tens of millions in damage. It's terrifying. Additionally, the ability to steal enemy skills is ready. The first to complete the theft, the Enforcer, unleashed a black hole that has now transformed. The black hole morphed into a long, wave-slicing black dragon, soaring in the sky and lurking beneath the earth. It crashed down onto the infernal dragon with a resounding impact. 1.2 billion. Furthermore, as the black dragon moved, it released a massive shockwave, causing corresponding damage to enemies in its path. Buzz. Another shot from the black dragon. 53 million. Moreover, each time a skill is released, the Enforcer lets out a dragon's roar. Su Bai's eyes widened in disbelief as he gazed at the damage exceeding 100 million. He then turned to look at the Enforcer and exclaimed, "Damn. Awesome." Interestingly, the skills stolen by the Enforcers were all different. The black holes they shot out displayed various dragon effects. Some showcased a dragon's tail swipe, some a soaring dragon, while others exhibited a fierce dragon's regret. It was akin to the 18 dragon-subduing palms executed by Qiao Feng, with each palm differing from the last. The effects were extraordinarily stunning and extravagant. This is incredible. Crouching in the 18th floor observation area, Lang Hanyue was already scared out of his wits. He regretted giving the power of the black hole to Su Bai. Why was he so foolish? Now, the damage this guy was causing was beyond what even the infernal dragon could withstand. This is too insane. Furthermore, each stolen skill was god tier, making others envious. Commander, The demon lord urgently requests you to head to the 17th floor. You've been wasting time here for 3 hours, urged a confidant of the demon lord from behind, holding a flame of ghostly fire, seemingly forcing him to move. I know, I'll lead my troops now. Rest assured, demon lord. After saying that, he could only grit his teeth and urge his troops toward the 17th floor to meet their fate. The infernal dragon unleashed a blaze, instantly incinerating hundreds of mobilized soldiers. Little figures jumped around, crying for water. How dare they be so arrogant? Enforcers, focus fire on the dragon's mouth. Fill it with cannonballs. Subai waved his hand. Today, they would not only kill this dragon, but also toy with it. Buzz. The infernal dragon prepared to unleash its magical flames again. Black holes rained down, repeatedly tearing apart its mouth and teeth,